Saturday morning, first morning of March 2025. I'm Peter Boyles, good old 710 KNUS. This is going to be a barn burner. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather, 67. My motorcycle's outside. Sunny and breezy tomorrow, 64, and Monday, 60 degrees. We have two topics that are really going to carry the show. One is, of course, what happened in the end of John's show, what happened when the Trump-Zelenskyy meeting in the Oval Office, and the other is what took place in the IHOP with Jeff and Billy on Thursday. I believe that show was a Thursday show, Wednesday show, I take it back, a Wednesday show, when a lawsuit got dropped, and the dropper was a woman by the name of Darcy Schoening, and she's in our studio at 10 o'clock this morning. In the meantime, I think the most significant is what did indeed happen in the Oval Office, and it's getting a lot of attention. And I've listened to John, I listened to some nighttime shows, I've listened to different people speak, and again, with a hint of arrogance, and I will go to the calls as quickly as I can here, the lack of understanding of history once again bites all of these guys in the tail, especially people that don't read it. Now, this really goes back to NATO. And if those of you who remember and understand the Cuban Missile Crisis, this was the Cuban Missile Crisis in reverse. Jack and Bob Kennedy discover that Nikita Khrushchev has put missiles into Cuba during the time of Fidel Castro, and they were not going to tolerate it. Now, what's happened, and you go back to times of Joseph Stalin or go back to the times of the Romanovs, no one wanted the incursions of the Europeans. And they saw it again and again and again. There's a wonderful historical moment where Joseph Stalin, and I was in school and I read these letters, and they were letters of the Queen of the Netherlands, Wilhelmina was her name. And she's writing letters to Joseph Stalin. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because the war had turned. It was just a question of death and destruction before Adolf Hitler shoots himself. What are we going to do with the Germans? And Joseph Stalin writes a letter to Wilhelmina and says, look, you know, they want to keep them. He said, we're going to divide them up, make them farmers, and that'll be the end of it. He said, because twice in my lifetime, they've come at us. They came at them in the First World War and certainly in the Second World War, Operation Barbarossa. And he said, if we allow them to unify and industrialize, give them 2 generations and they'll be back at our throats. Everybody saw the Germans that way. Everybody saw, and the Poles saw it under NATO and under Warsaw Bloc, and everybody has seen this jockeying. And the last thing that Vladimir Putin was going to put up with was having Ukraine join NATO. That was the equivalent of having Soviet missiles in Cuba. And no one seemed to even look at it that way. And he said, you can't join NATO. You can't be part of NATO. And of course, they were going ahead and they were going to join NATO with, all of these Europeans who we're supposed to see as so brave, European officials. And now they see themselves as surrounded. Again, I'm not defending Putin. I'm thinking, for God's sake, read something. And that's really what triggered it. Was the same thing that triggered the Kennedys on the Cuban Missile Crisis triggers the beginnings of all of this. Now, did Putin think what was going to happen? No. And how much money has been made in this country by sending arms, ammunitions, manufacturing, and I still believe there are American soldiers are there, and now they have this war. And along comes Donald Trump with a campaign promise, I'll stop this war. And one of the things, and I had a good conversation, I was with some good friends yesterday, Steve Wells and Steve Reams. I'm probably one of the most least respectful people in the world. But you're going into the Oval Office, and he goes in that black sweatshirt, and Trump gigs him for it. Trump's, nice, but I don't care if Joe Biden's president. I don't care if, Joe Bag of Donuts. You put on a suit and tie. Remember in the Hoffa Wars, that was a big thing with Jimmy. You go to a meeting, you wear a tie. And I have a friend of mine who now is involved in some things. I said, from now on, wear a tie. And I'm a sloppy dresser. I'm not a good dresser. But if I was going to go to the Oval, I think I'd go to Robert Hall, man. I'd go and get myself a suit. And he goes in there, and you know that he's going to jerk Trump around. Why? And I think because he sees the truth there's going to be, and now they're finding American weapons in the secondary market. That what's going on is the Ukrainians are now taking our weaponry that we give to them, and they're selling it. It's a corrupt place. And the plucky little Ukrainians, if you know the history of Ukraine and the history during this time, I'm not defending, I'm simply saying read it. Understand why Putin was not going to allow the Ukraine to join NATO, because it goes back age-old into the times of the Romanovs, into the times of the Bolsheviks, into the times of Joseph Stalin, into the times of the modern times. You don't come here any more than they're going to go to Cuba. And so, I've said before many times, I'm not the greatest Trump fan in the world, but I see sometimes he just really guides it through smart. And the chances now that the Europeans are going to have to arm the Ukrainians and, and back their play, the Europeans seem to want to always hold the coat of this country. And the outburst on Friday, which Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, and they berate Zelenskyy and lay bare the deep, this chasm that's between Washington and the European partners. It has left European leaders grappling with how to salvage the situation with the Trump administration. You don't have to. I don't know. That's my take. Let's start with the phones. We got Jerry. Hey, Jerry, you're on a radio show Saturday morning. Brother man, good morning.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for taking my call.
Pleasure.
It seems like when I was waiting to talk to John that because we've given so many millions and billions of dollars, a lot of it unaccounted for,
yeah,
that it's nothing for Zelenskyy and his group to skim off millions of dollars that are unaccountable.
Well, they have been. Yeah.
So we know they're doing that. So Trump says we need to get something back for the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars we contributed.
Precious metals.
So we want the precious metals, and of course with that will come automatic security because our companies will be there. So no one seemed to have brought that up, that Trump wants something for all the money that we have given.
I agree.
And Zelenskyy should have come cap in hand. Instead, he wants more funding, and we know that security will come with it. And like you said, he should have dressed for success, come in appropriately, and been a mensch about it instead of being like an opportunist.
Well, he sees himself, I think, what do I know? I think he sees himself as this international star. He sees himself in a special limelight in the world. And once again, if you do regression analysis, they told them, don't join NATO. Don't get involved with NATO. Wasn't going to stop them.
And again, we hear about his wife doing shopping sprees at the most fashionable shops around the world.
Sure.
And I remember reading, I forgot where, that Zelenskyy has a huge yacht, a country home, and apparently a home in Coral Gables, Florida as well.
That could be.
So the guy's a thief. I have patients that are from the Ukraine, and they were saying not only is there massive anti-Semitism, but he can't trust Zelenskyy and being at the top of the opportunity to skim off dollars as they come in. He just wants more and more. So Trump is just trying to get back something for what we've already given from the Biden administration. And it was as simple as that. It's getting something back for what we've been so generous in the past.
And remember that when Operation Barbarossa takes place, Ukrainians rise up and join the Nazis. And they point out to where the Jews are hiding. They point out to where commissars are hiding. And then when the war goes back the other way, I think the war in the Ukraine continues until 1947. Ukrainians fighting against the Soviet army it's a horrible history. It's not a very pleasant history. The Kulak purges take place in Ukraine. It's a back and forth, but one thing is for sure, the comparison analysis between the Cuban Missile Crisis and what happened is striking.
And we know that Trump is America first. He wants to get back some of the dollars and value that we've given freely to Ukraine that Biden has been so free with. How does the public not see that as Trump being for America, trying to recoup extra dollars, some of the dollars that we've given, and it's a small price to pay to give up minerals for support from Trump and America first.
And if you think when FDR did Lend-Lease, what he got Bermuda, he got stations in the Atlantic for American destroyers, American Navy, and that was the deal for Lend-Lease with Winston Churchill. We gave old destroyers, but we got things for it. And in spite of that idea, when your neighbor's house is on fire, you loan them the garden hose. But FDR arranges deals and other islands. Bermuda was one of them, and they make a deal. Okay, here's a deal. That's a deal. And this one-sided, and it's the American taxpayer under PL 480, $20 billion is the estimated number that I read last night of what the Ukraine expected from the United States. Okay, now what? $20 billion. Jerry, that's a lot.
Got to get something back.
It's a lot of money.
Got to get something back for it. We've been too generous, and unfortunately, America, prior to Trump, were supportive of Biden to help the underdog.
What?
But now it's coming back to Biden.
Or even if Joe Biden even knew, I mean, that was a...
Oh, it's his people, not Biden himself.
Thank you. And it's the idea of the military-industrial complex, and they're sending all of these sophisticated weaponries, and at the expense of the taxpayer. We can't afford this anymore. It's just, and plus it's ridiculous. Plus people are dying, and like I said before, I'm not the biggest Donald Trump fan in the world, but I get what he was attempting to do, and now it's Katie bar the door.
And we got to trust Trump. He's in the best interest for us.
See what happens.
I sleep better at night knowing Trump is in the office.
You take care of yourself. Very good call. Thank you. All right, we go to one line's open. This is Mike in Littleton. Hey, Mike, good morning, man. Thanks.
Well, good morning. Thanks to you. I liked your comment about Europe is very happy to hold our coat while we get up there and duke it out.
Sure.
Hey, Peter, Europe, the EU has a population of 470 million, 3 times that of the Soviet Union. They probably have 6 times the GDP that the Soviet Union does. We can turn that over to them. They should be handling all the European defense that they need to handle. I'm totally with getting out of this war, stopping the support of it. Once again, it's another meddling by the United States that's been going on since probably 1990.
Before.
That's turned sour. It's
way
gone
before.
bad.
Way before. You're right, but it's way before 90. But for the life of me. So some of the loudest statements about this new reality without the backing of the United States, it comes from the Europeans who, again, the United States on two separate occasions, Big One and Big Two, we go to Europe and we save them. And the Russians coming the other way in the Second World War, the Russians win that war. The First World War is they're utterly just emulsified. But nevertheless, I mean, you have to understand Russian history, and I don't pretend to. I'm a reader, and understand how they see the world, and that's far more important than how Governor Polis sees the world.
It's ironic. J.D. Vance went over to Munich last month and gave the speech, kind of criticized the Europeans over there. In 2007, Putin gave a speech at the same conference and warned the European leaders that this constant encroachment of NATO, closer and closer to the borders, he warned them.
Sure he did.
Is going to cause problems.
Yes.
That was 2007. It's almost 20 years ago.
That's the Cuban Missile Crisis in reverse.
Very good.
And I'm always struck by the inability of people that we elect, like George W. Bush or that idiot Cheney or any of those people. Do you think they ever cracked a book on Afghanistan? The answer is no.
I'll tell you what. I cannot believe that we as a country, as a whole, we can't seem to learn a lesson. We have failed.
No.
We can't run the world.
No.
When we do interfere, we may do some good for a while, but it inevitably turns sour. I don't care where you go.
Blows back.
It blows back, and so I'm going back to Washington. It's like beware of foreign entanglements.
Yep.
We need to get out of this stuff.
Stay away.
And look at reality. If Europe is as strong as they look on paper, they don't need our help. They don't need to hold our coat.
And even if they're not, it's no longer. It isn't. This isn't 1941.
You got to be able to stand up for yourself and defend yourself. We cannot, defend the entire world.
And I think it was shown at best yesterday. I know that Trump can be very ham-handed from time to time, but what I watched Zelenskyy do and what they've been doing, and they were warned, as you pointed out, in 2007, they were told, don't go near the water. Don't join NATO. Everything's going to be fine. Nope, they're going to go ahead and do it. And once they start doing it, people that have read the history of the Cuban Missile Crisis understand. And I'm not defending Vladimir Putin. I'm just saying this is how Putin sees the world.
Well, and, I just finished a book, Annie Jacobson's. It's called Nuclear War, a Scenario. And she points out just how quick this can happen. The whole thing can go sour.
It's a tripwire.
It's a tripwire.
Yep.
And like Trump kept saying, why are we gambling? Why are you gambling with, World War III?
Exactly what
Stop
he's doing.
this.
Yeah, he's right doing. Good thought. Good calls. All right, everybody. One line's open, 303-696-1971. Coming up, Darcy Schoening will be in studio at 10 o'clock. This is quite the story this morning. 710 KNUS 67 is a high. I'm Peter Boyles. Stay right here. There it goes. Bump, bump, bump. Rolled into Nazareth. You know, that's the home of what guitars are made there in Nazareth. It's the band, Robbie Robinson, one of the all-time great tunes. You figure it out. But they said in Nazareth, what's made there? Yeah, Martin guitars are made there. Yeah. I mean, everything has a meaning in a song. Take the load for free. And there was a guy that used to come into town at night who was crazy, and he wore toy guns, and he would always try to clean up the town on Saturday night. They all knew all these people, and so that was what they were writing about. But I think Nazareth was everyone thought it was something about a religious experience. It wasn't. It's where the guitars were made. All right, jam lines and a good morning. Saturday, 67, sunny and warm. 64 on Sunday. Monday, 60 degrees. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS Denver Stock Station. Ski resorts. And we're going into March. This is March 1, the best skiing of the year. And I'm going to try and ski. I went through some medical stuff, and this is my month. I'm going to give it a lick and give it a try for the best winter sports equipment. Larson Ski and Sport. Our guys south of I-70 on Kipling. So renting or buying equipment. This time of the year, too, there's always great deals. John Marriott and his son Jack and Paul and everybody, they got you covered. Truly, I mean, this is a wonderful time to ski. They're dedicated to providing you with the best skiing equipment possible. The convenience of Larson's is unbeatable. It's a perfect stop on your way up or your way down the hill. You're going westbound on I-70, going skiing, get off on the Kipling exit, come down the ramp, and you make a left and go right underneath I-70, come out the other side, look to your right, look to the west, and you'll see a big wooden box, 7 days a week, Larson Ski and Sports. Now, rent for your kids and grandkids. It's the great lesson because next year their feet are going to be too big. They're going to grow up. The convenience of Larson's is unbeatable. The people who work there know exactly what they're doing, and they're there for you. Trust me, John Marriott and the guys at Larson, absolute experts at everything they need and you need for winter sports. Stop in today, tell them I sent you. Larson Ski and Sports, out there by 70 on Kipling, 303-423-0654, 303-423-0654, larsonsport.com. All right, we go to the phones. Ralph in the Springs has waited longest. Ralph, you're on the radio show. Good afternoon. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Let me take you off speaker.
Thank you, sir.
There, how's that?
There you go.
Yeah. Basically, what happened yesterday was Trump was cutting a new deal with Zelenskyy and the Ukraine, and the only thing that he was offering Zelenskyy was a photo op.
That's what I think that was. Yeah, that was intended. You're right.
Exactly. Think about what the so-called deal was. You, Zelenskyy, are going to pay me for everything I've given you in the past.
Yeah.
I'm not going to guarantee your border. So if there's a contract for raw minerals that we get, then I'm not going to guarantee you your security, but I will cut a deal with Putin as long as Putin allows us to keep the raw minerals.
Yeah.
Zip to Z.
So,
do you understand that?
Yes. So what I'm asking you is, or what I'm asking everybody is, what is the outcome of this? I mean, Trump's getting hammered. I just got a news flash that Trump is, here it is, analysis. Trump's clash with Zelenskyy marks a defining turn away from U.S. defense of democracies. That's not our job.
Wait a minute, Peter. I'm a Vietnam vet. And I'll take you back to Russia since that's where you started. Remember that the United States provided zillions to Russia. We didn't have a Lend-Lease. We just gave it to them, flat out. But Stalin never paid us, but what Stalin paid was blood.
What Stalin paid was he won the war in Europe.
Bingo. And that was the thing, that what we received was Stalin killed 100 Russians for every one that we lost.
And remember Winston Churchill's great line, "I will crawl on my hands and knees to Moscow to defeat Adolf Hitler."
Right. And that has been the deal that has been cut from at least before World War II to Trump. I was in Vietnam. Did we have a nice, wonderful, democratic, loving government there?
13,
Hell no.
13 separate governments.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like, remember the comment that FDR made about Stalin? Yes, he's a bastard.
No,
but he's our bastard.
He said that about Joe Kennedy. It was like Jimmy Burns or Stettinius or one of his aides when he creates the Federal Trade Commission and the guy, and he appoints Joe Kennedy before he appoints him ambassador to England, and I think it's Stettinius that says, "My God, Franklin, the man's a crook."
But Peter, I think he made the comment later about Stalin, but the thing holds true.
Both
Fundamentally,
ways.
we will support anyone.
Yeah.
As long as we don't have to lose U.S. lives, if they will put their people's lives in place of ours.
And Stalin knew that, and Stalin used
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I say they lost 100, we lost 1. We won World War II. How?
No.
With other people's lives. That's what the deal has been up to now. And I think what Europe is, they're in for a shock. But I have a question for you with regard to how you started the show.
Yep.
And that is this. Europe, or Russia may be looking at Europe and thinking Germany and how many times they got invaded. Mm-hmm. Okay, where is the line in Europe that gives Putin security? Is it Ukraine? Is it the Polish border on the Oder River now? Is it the Rhine?
Well, when NATO,
or is it the English Channel? Where does Putin get security?
When NATO was invented or conceived, there was something called the Warsaw Bloc, and the Warsaw Bloc included Poland, Estonia, Bulgaria. They were the Hungarians. They were all part of the Warsaw Bloc. Opposite the Warsaw Bloc was NATO. In the south of the world was something called CETO, and CETO brought the Australians into Vietnam, and and also the the South Korean army also went into Southeast Asia, the Rocks and the Tigers, and so it's an interesting chessboard. But again, you go back and you read Russian Soviet history, or even now. They call themselves a republic. Yeah, things don't change. Mindsets don't change.
But that's the same question that keeps coming up, and that's why I ask it of you: is how far into Europe does the Russian domination have to go for Putin to feel secure?
Well,
I mean, the reason we have Warsaw Pact. Well, let's put it this way: you had the Russian-Hitler Pact. Russo-Soviet Pact, because Russia wanted Poland, or at least parts of Poland, Estonia, Latvia, et cetera, to have a bigger buffer against the Germans.
Well, they signed the agreement. It was Ribbentrop Pact, and it was often called the Pact of Steel, but I don't think that was how they meant it. But it was Ribbentrop and Malenkov. And all they're doing...
No, Molotov.
Was it Molotov? Well, it was Malenkov.
Molotov, yep.
All right.
That was Molotov.
Okay.
Malenkov was later.
There's two of them. One's Georgy Malenkov, and the other one's Molotov. And
right.
Okay, I won't argue that. But they made the deal with the champagne salesman Ribbentrop. Yep. And so what Stalin believes that Hitler is actually going to be his ally. Surprise. They just bought time.
Exactly.
And I mean, there's so many things around that moment and what they tried to do, but they did. You're right. They took Poland.
Yeah, and that's all. My only point is this: that if you're a European and you're looking east, you see someone who wants to take over your country. Now, whether or not the Europeans are, how shall I say, living off the U.S. dime, I'm not going to debate, because they are.
Well, they're also not expansionists, but when they get there, they stay. In other words, they, under the times of Peter the Great, or Catherine the Great, or any of the Romanovs. I'm kind of a geek about reading about the Romanovs. They were not necessarily expansionists. They had this, what were they, in 17 of the world's 24 time zones? What do they need to do? But when Joseph Stalin gets into Poland and gets into East Germany or into Germany, they stay. One of the reasons that Stalin says we stay, because he said they've come after us twice. We're not going to let them. We're not going to let them do it again. And
so where is the security line for Putin this century? That's the only question.
I can tell you this much: it isn't allowing Ukraine to become part of NATO. That isn't going to fly.
Absolutely.
Good
Agreed.
call. All right, man. Love it. Good call. Thank you so much. How's our time? We're in good shape? We're in good shape. We go to line one. Pam, you're on a radio show. It's Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering, you started off talking about what Zelenskyy wore, and I wonder what you think about what Elon Musk wears.
Well, two things.
He wears a hat indoors.
I know.
He's wearing a hat inside.
But he's not the head of state, and he's not here asking for anything.
Well, he's asking a lot of us, and he is.
No,
I mean, when he's on TV, he is asking things of us. He's asking us to be patient. He's asking us to trust him. He's asking a lot of us.
He's an oddball. There's no question about that. But he's not here in the role that Zelenskyy was in.
Right, and I think that he's trying to get across. I mean, he's in a war-torn country, and he's been under fire for 3 years. I mean, that's stressful.
Of course.
And I feel like he was ambushed when he came in. I mean, who cares that he's in a T-shirt? Look, I mean, at least it's not a cartoon T-shirt with the morning coat and then a hat on.
Well, once again, I think
that's just a fake outrage. It's fake outrage, is what it is.
Well, you're doing rabbits and ducks. I mean, they're two separate people doing two separate missions. One is clearly, I mean, you could do what you want to do with Musk, but he's not.
What I'm trying to do is compare the two and compare your.
They're not. They're not doing the same role. Zelensky's here for money, respect, and everything that went with it. Musk is here to be a combination, I think, between a jester and the gray
and
eminence.
We're supposed to trust that, with the chainsaw, and he's the richest man in the world, and he can't put on a suit and a tie.
That's up to you.
And that's fine with you. But Zelenskyy, who's been in a war-torn country for the last 3 years.
He has a big home here, and his wife shops, and all the things that go with it. Remember Winston Churchill came in a morning coat. Winston Churchill came and lived in the White House.
And a T-shirt?
No.
With a hat on?
Winston Churchill wore a top hat.
Okay.
But he was dressed as a
That's a little bit different than a baseball cap.
No, he's a British gentleman. No, please.
Exactly.
I mean, it was a different time. But I don't think for a second. I think if someone said, "Hey, Peter, you can go to the Oval Office," I'd get a suit.
Well, it's just too bad Elon Musk wouldn't, huh?
Well, again, Elon Musk's role in all of this is quite different than what Zelensky's role is.
Well, they're supposed to be respected. I mean, put that aside. There are people that are supposed to be trusted. So, just that amount of
trust goes
emphasis on his clothing.
Trust goes trust is worth about a foot and a half. What it is, what was Ronald Reagan's great line? You trust, but you verify. Mm-hmm. And that's not what we're talking about.
And I think Zelensky's verified. I mean, he's not doing.
Well, Zelensky's plan was for the United States of America, your tax money, to supply Ukraine with ammunition, artillery, air defenses, drones, weapon systems.
I mean, he's asking a lot of people, everybody of that, right? Correct. That's correct.
What's correct?
You are correct. He is asking
and
people
so
of that, yes.
for free,
including us.
Billions of dollars in either euros or U.S. dollars, billions of dollars have poured into the Ukraine by American tax dollars through the military-industrial complex. Europe is.
It's just I can't. Can you not say the Ukraine? It's Ukraine. You don't say the Russia, please. Okay, sorry.
Well, you say the United States. You say the United States of America. You say, I mean, there's different verbiage leads, but people don't say in the Ukraine. I think I say that, and I think it's probably apt. Well, but you would say in the British Isles or in the British Commonwealth. Or in
I would not say in the Russia.
Well, but you don't say in a United States. You say in the United States. 30 seconds. I got 30 seconds. Give you the last comment.
Well, how many countries have nuclear weapons that are in NATO? I mean, it's hard. Come on.
Well,
do you know which ones have?
Oh, sure. I mean,
what are they?
They know.
How many?
They know the club.
How many? How many have nuclear weapons?
I don't know.
Three countries. Three. USA, UK, and France. That's it. Thank you.
Israel, the world, Pakistan, India. We're coming back on the other side. Stay here.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
A federal judge in Maryland has issued a ruling blocking DOGE from accessing student loan systems at the Department of Education, while also blocking access to a broader set of personnel files at the Office of Personnel Management. Judge Deborah Boardman, who was appointed by Joe Biden, said allowing DOGE access would amount to privacy violations. The order was made after a coalition of labor unions sued DOGE earlier this month, trying to block Musk from conducting audits at the DOE, the Treasury, and the OPM. Boardman has also issued rulings blocking President Donald Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship and banning DOGE from reviewing government contracts. Boardman said federal privacy laws restrict what agencies can do with personal identifying information. However, the administration pointed to the law's, quote, need-to-know exception. DOGE asserts that it needs to know the information in order to carry out President Donald Trump's directive to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal government. President Donald Trump is backing Elon Musk when it comes to his demand that federal employees explain what they did last week or risk getting fired. Watch.
We have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to find, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, you know, where's all that, where's the money gone? We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far, and we've just started. So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people, please tell us what you did last week.
Governor Greg Abbott is speaking out after a report that an entire city is being constructed in Texas that would be ruled by Sharia law. The governor taking to X saying, to be clear, Sharia law is not allowed in Texas, nor are Sharia cities, nor are no-go zones, which this project seems to imply. Bottom line, he said, the project as proposed in the video is not allowed in Texas. Governor Abbott's remarks come after a video was circulated on social media showing the plans for a 402-acre city that would allegedly be ruled by Sharia law. The community is called Epic Ranches, and it will feature a mega mosque and Islamic school, parks for mass prayer gatherings, and a community centered around Islam.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
It's a Saturday morning, everyone. March 1, 2025, 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles, 67, sunny and warm. 64 tomorrow and Monday, 60 degrees. The focus in this segment has been on what happened in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, Zelenskyy, and J.D. Vance. Coming up in our studio, and she has been in the eye of the storm, Darcy Schoening. And she wants to become the head of the Republican Party in Colorado. And I've got some surprises for folks. And tell you about Danny Kaplis, my friend. He is my friend. Dan and I go back. I was trying to think how many years. I don't know, 30. But Danny suggests you choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says so much about you, so much in who's involved in a case. And Danny, of course, grew up, his dad's a cop. We've talked about his mom. Dedicated the last 40 years of his life helping people who were hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan, believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan believed also to be the largest truck crash verdict. He won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. He's a family friend. He has been so good to my family. He's just this decent guy that came and helped. Dan Kaplis Law, the official law firm partner of the Nuggets and the Avalanche. And his law firm is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on percentage fee basis. He's my friend. Represents good people, all walks of life, without regard to the ability to pay. If you need help, if you got a question, 303-770-5551. Kaplis Law, Kaplis Law.com, but call 30, just ask. You got a question, 303-770-5551. All right, I think we go to Jack in Cheyenne. Jack, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Can't hear you, Bubba. You there?
Hello, who's this?
Who do you think it is?
I don't know. You're my history teacher. That's why I called you up.
Go get him, brother. You're on.
Stalin is not his real name, but Stalin in Russian is Steele, right?
Steele, yes. Dujasvili is his first, or is his last name.
Okay. See, I knew you'd know that.
Yeah.
Hey, you know who Felix Yusupov was, don't you? He's the guy who finally finished off Rasputin, right?
Yeah, well, they were barons and dukes and earls and whatever it was, and they drowned him, they shot him.
I know.
He wouldn't die.
It took 6 attempts. No, he wouldn't die.
Rasputin wouldn't die.
I'd like to know what he drank, and I'm going to switch over.
I'm telling you. But they had different. Trotsky's real name was Bromstein. Stalin was, and I will mispronounce it. He's Georgian. Dujasvili, I think, is how he said his last name. They had different names. I mean, Lenin. Remember, they all meant something. I think Trotsky meant the pen. I thought, or maybe Lenin, the spark. Maybe it was the spark. But they were what's called a nom de guerre. They were war names.
Yes.
And
yes,
so,
they were names.
Yeah, and so, by the way, is Che Guevara.
He came out of Argentina, didn't he?
Che Guevara's parents are Irish. His name is Ernest Lynch.
Okay.
I
think I remember that.
Che Guevara.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
He chose the names. Yeah.
But he was raised in Brazil or Uruguay or somewhere, wasn't he?
Argentina.
Argentina. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll call you next week for my next history lesson.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, man. Bye. All right, we go to Anna in Littleton. Hey, Anna, thank you. You're on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter, and thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I just want to follow up on the previous host that I was telling him about. If you come with your hand open to ask for money, you should be respectful and humble.
I agree.
The way he and I told him, he should have learned the culture of the country that you go.
Oh, yeah.
Many times we foreigners want to impose our culture in a new country. Right. Now, obviously, he is a politician and he should have learned that long time ago. John said that he was in a war and that he didn't have the chance to or the time to learn that.
That's not true.
Well, if you don't learn it now, I don't know when you are going to learn it.
Yeah,
you have to be. Yeah. Excuse me.
He's been going to the heads of state in Europe. He comes to this country, and I mean, I know. And listen, I'm not a stickler for any social standards, but you're going to the Oval. I don't care if it's Joe Biden or, Joe Bag of Donuts. Put a suit on.
Yes, absolutely. Just correct etiquette, and I don't think he learned it. I hope that John also learned from his Ukrainian friends what, if it is true, what the Zelenskyy wife shopping spree is doing.
Oh yeah, no.
It seems that we want to see him as a victim. He should have been smarter enough and do not let the war be this long. And to answer the question about what the United States should have done when we knew about the war with them, yes, we should. When we learned about that and wanted to help him, we should have given him everything to destroy Russia. And yes, Russia is a powerful, etc., etc. But they were, for being a small country, they were doing very well. But they were fighting because Biden with one hand on the back.
Well, Biden mishandled that as he mishandled the problems in Gaza. He mishandled problems almost everywhere. But at the same time, and again, if you look at the model of what happened in the United States in 1962 when Khrushchev puts the missiles in Cuba, that's exactly how, and again, I'm not defending Putin, but Putin says, I do not want NATO in Ukraine. And all they would have had to do was back away. But no, the NATO allies, including the United States of America, pushed to have Ukraine become a member of NATO. And that was intolerable. They were just not going to let that happen. And for all the reasons that we've talked about in terms of Russian-Soviet history, you're not going to do that. And I don't know. Once again, I don't think anybody cracks a book or anybody listens to anybody knows what they're talking about. But Joe Biden, the estimated number is $20 billion, and now the American armaments are showing up in secondary markets that they're being sold again, and they're being.
Yeah, I know. That really blows makes my blood.
Yeah, but that's how it operated and operates. And look, if anybody understands, the underhanded deal, it's Trump. And
right. And this lady that called you two callers ago that she wanted to do, I don't know, with the correct pronunciation or whatever it was, she doesn't understand why Trump behaved that way. You cannot make peace if you talk about your opponent or the one that you are going to hell with by talking bad about him. And he is. He's a horrible person. I read. I'm not stupid like John want to make me to be. But you cannot, if you talk bad about me and then you want to make peace with me, you don't do that.
You don't do it. Listen.
He should learn more to be more diplomatic.
But that's who he
behave properly.
He sees
you
himself.
You do not talk over. Yeah. I'm sorry. He doesn't. He didn't understand that the president was the host. You do not talk over him.
You walk in.
He did many times.
I have to do this,
right.
And I got a break because we're coming on the turn. All right. So this began on Jeff and Billy at the IHOP, and I had to get filled in by so many different people about what this is about. Darcy Schoening, she's coming in our studio, and we will continue. It's a red-hot morning. I'm Peter Boyles. The weather's beautiful. My sickle's outside. 67 on a Saturday, Sunday 64. Monday it's 60 degrees. Are we ready to do this? Nod your head and tell me yes. But when you watch this happen, and again, the people who really totally dislike Trump come up with one thing. People that love Trump come up with another. But there is a middle. And I think Trump handled this quite well. And the repercussions and the echoes of this are going to continue for quite a while. All right, let's see what happens next. Stay here. It's March 1, 710 KNUS. And good morning, everybody. It is a Saturday, March 1, 2025, and it's beautiful outside. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station. Weather goes like this: sunny, warm, and 67 degrees. Mild 64 on Sunday, and Monday it is going to be 60 degrees. This is one of these shows that sort of fell into my lap. Sitting in studio or saying good morning. Please say good morning to Darcy Schoening's with us. It's good morning. Good to have you here. Thank you for doing the show.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure, but I got to tell you how this came together. It's like you're grinning. I think you know. Last Saturday, Rich Wyatt came in here. He's now the head of the Jefferson County Republican Party. So the show's over, and he's talking about people that he thought would be a good fit on the show. He said, "Do you know who Darcy Schoening is?" And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Well, she's running for Colorado Republican Party chair." And I said, "Well, that's a job Dave Williams has." Well, Dave may step aside, and now Dave has stepped aside. So I was really busy Wednesday morning, and Billy and Jeff, here we go, were at the IHOP. And our favorite newscaster is Kyle Clark. And without further ado, this is what Kyle Clark said about what happened. Now notice when you do this, and this is when I listen to this, Kyle doesn't talk about call letters. He doesn't talk about anything like that. It's just these horrible conservatives. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is Kyle Clark speaking about Jeff and Billy and Darcy and what happened in an IHOP on Wednesday. So let's go. Adam, if you would.
Like many families, the Colorado Republican Party tends to have its fights and meltdowns in public. Today, one faction of the party served another faction of the party with a lawsuit at an IHOP restaurant. As diners in Greenwood Village enjoyed the breakfast faves combo, the house scramble, and the pancake of the month, one candidate for the Colorado GOP chair dropped a double stack of litigation on the plate of a rival. This stems from the Republican Civil War over whether to replace current state chairman Dave Williams, who is accused of misusing party funds for his failed GOP primary bid for Congress, and for the hassle he created for Colorado Republicans with his call to burn all pride flags. But back to the IHOP, home of the new spicy shredded beef anytime tacos, where the spicy lawsuit served this morning shreds the Republicans who tried unsuccessfully to force out Chairman Williams. She got Darcy Schoening, current party leader who's running for chair in next month's elections, who served papers this morning on Britta Horn, a rival candidate for chair who was part of the uprising. They were both at the IHOP for interviews with a local talk radio show doing a live broadcast from the Pancake House. Neither woman waffled when I reached out to him today. Schoening says Horn stole money from party donors. Horn called it a frivolous attack. You may recall the Colorado GOP has a bit of a history of airing its grievances at random businesses in the suburbs. In 2022, we dubbed it the Boot Barn Rebellion, when the faction of the GOP that's now in control was on the outside. They got turned away from the Republican Party offices, so they stood in the parking lot of the Western Wear Outfitter nearby, hollering that their party leaders were whores.
We have a Republican Party that is full of whores. They've not held to the U.S. Constitution. And then you wonder why these can't win a race.
Those Boot Barn rebels now lead the Colorado Republican Party, leading us to this morning's IHOP dust-up. So if you're buying boots or breakfast in the suburbs and you hear ruckus, might just be Colorado Republicans working things out.
Kyle Clark talking about our guest in studio. It's amazing. Darcy Schoening's with us, and that was Kyle Clark's. Notice no call letters, no names, no. Except I got to believe this: that if I was a manager or an owner of IHOP, I'd really be glad. He's really selling the menu, isn't he?
It's like a commercial for IHOP.
All right. So what was that? I wasn't there, and I didn't hear it with Jeff and Billy. I've talked to so many people about what happened, and so many people have called me about what. And the fact that I cut that promo that you were going to be with me, this was prior to the great dust up. So I was up in Weld County yesterday with Steve. It's interesting, with friends up there. Steve Wells is up there, and of course the sheriff is up there, and these guys are all big listeners. And so driving back, I called Chuck Bonnewell, who we both know, and Chuck's my publisher. And I said, Chuck, explain to me, soup to nuts, what this is about. So I got Chuck's entire working definition. So I'm going to turn to you. What the hell's going on?
Sure. So are you asking specifically what's going on with that lawsuit?
You pick and play. We got an hour. Go
Sure.
ahead.
Okay. So it was last fall when a group tried to overthrow the current Colorado GOP leadership, which I'm sure Chuck explained to you. They are not happy with Dave, Hope, and Anna. So Eli Bremer, Todd Watkins, Britta Horn, and Christy Burton Brown launched an initiative to have a meeting that was not sanctioned by the Colorado GOP to overthrow the leadership. They went ahead with the help of a lot of elected officials and held a non-sanctioned meeting. And they said, we elect Eli Bremer as chair, Britta Horn as vice chair. I don't remember who was secretary. And this is the new leadership. And it was so bold that, even on social media, they said, this is the new Colorado GOP. While Dave and Hope and Anna are the existing Colorado GOP. And they said, no, you're not. So Eli Bremer, Britta Horn, Todd Watkins, and KBB launched a lawsuit to nullify the current leadership and to ask a judge to say that the leadership is not seated properly and that they're the new leadership based upon the meeting that they held.
Mike Button, what judge or where do you get status to do that?
Well, anybody can sue anybody.
We know that. Yeah.
Because they're members of the Colorado GOP. Okay. They are members. Right. They have that right to, if they're not satisfied with bylaws or a XCOM determination, they can go and petition to have their case heard in court. It doesn't have to be heard, but this judge decided to go ahead and hear it in El Paso County Court.
Okay.
And that judge determined that the bylaws were followed correctly by the current GOP leadership.
Under Dave,
Hope, and Anna, and that the lawsuit by Bremer, Horn, Watkins was frivolous. And so the current GOP leadership would stand, and the lawsuit by that side, that group of people, was thrown out. And so the judge ruled in the favor of leadership. But all of that to say that while that was going on, the party had to expend over $100,000 to hold on to their leadership seats because
they're hiring attorneys.
Great. They had to defend themselves in court. And so while I'm not a party to the lawsuit, I work for the current leadership. And I did know that, these people don't want to be served this lawsuit because they don't want to have to pay this immense amount of money back. And I realized that Ms. Horn was going to be at IHOP. And I said to myself, this would be a good time to serve her. Yeah.
Self.
Yeah. And it's nothing personal. I
Were you a guest on the show as well?
I was a guest on the Jeff and Bill show, yes.
Earlier than Britta was?
Yes, I was on before Britta was.
Okay, all right.
Yes, so I decided that the right thing to do by the party, and especially by the party's donors, would be to go ahead and get this served. I don't have anything personal against Britta. I've spent time with Britta. I welcome her to help us in the party. But when a group of people tries to usurp leadership and they cost the party money, we have to somehow get that money back or figure out some type of alternative solution to make the party whole again. And like I said, that's a lot of money. So I don't think Britta should be kicked out of the party. I don't think Eli should be kicked out of the party. But donors sent that money for candidates to be elected, for us to fight for conservative causes. They didn't donate money for lawsuits.
And that's the gist.
That's the gist of that lawsuit. We just have to put those funds back into the Colorado GOP.
Because you did this off camera, so I wasn't there, and I went back and looked at the tape, and of course it had happened off camera, I've talked to Billy and talked to Jeff a little bit, but talked to Billy a lot. How did she react when you came up to her and hung the paper?
Well, I do have a video of the incident because I confronted her at the bathroom.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, where she was first. And I handed her the stack of papers, and I said, Britta Horn, you've been served. And she kind of nudged them, threw them onto the floor.
Dropped them.
Yes. So which is understandable. And so I picked those papers up, and as she was sitting next to Mr. Hunt, I just set them down next to her, and I said, here's your papers.
So you guys were off air when that happened,
Yes.
I think.
Yes, I didn't do it on air.
So did she take the papers with her when she left?
I don't know. Probably not. I would assume not. But she was properly served. So, I mean, there's no getting around it now.
So what happens next?
Well, she's been served. The others are in the process of being served. I believe one or two of them was over the last week. And now a judge or the court will set a court date for us to try to recoup some of those funds.
So what you want is, if I understand this correctly, you want the money back.
Correct. I want the money back into the Colorado GOP account. As somebody who, I'm the director of special initiatives for the Colorado GOP, it's painstaking. It's hard to raise money. And
that's one of my questions,
Yeah, and I raised a lot of that money. I worked diligently to put money into our coffers to help candidates get elected. And some of the donors are my friends. And I have a hard time looking at somebody and saying, sorry that you wrote a check for $1,000 and it went to a lawsuit. That's just not right. So we either have to put the money back, or leadership, future leadership, and donors and the voting members have to find some mechanism to make the party whole again, whatever it may be.
I'm working with a number of $100,000. If you just joined us, in the eye of the storm, Darcy Schoening is with us, and since that happened with Jeff and Bill, now Dave Williams has resigned or said he's not going to go for another term. And maybe I should ask that question first. What does that do to the face of the Republican Party? And if I've read all of this correctly, your hat's in the ring.
Yes.
Okay.
So the face of the Republican Party is not determined by our leadership. It's the only thing leadership determines is how effective we're going to be, whether we're going to get candidates elected, whether we're going to advance our issues. Dave has been a great conservative leader for the party. I have loved working for him, and I believe that I will serve as the next Colorado GOP chair because of the work that I've put in, how hard I stand for our values, and that's what we need. We just need to make sure that we elect a doer to this seat.
There's a rumor that Dave is going to get a job with the Trump administration. Can you add to that or say anything?
If I could tell you, I would. I don't know yet. If he hasn't said that out loud, there's probably reasons for that. I just don't know.
So is it a good thing or a bad thing for Dave to step aside from the Republican Party?
Well, as long as I don't think, of course, we'll be sad to see
because the real battles took place
inside.
Yes.
Correct. So we'll be sad to see Dave go, but we know that based upon the reorg meetings over the last several weeks, that there will be an America First grassroots leader in that seat. It will not be Britta Horn. So we will be leading with somebody that is more similar to Dave or myself, and that's what's most important to the Colorado GOP.
Who elects the chair?
So the chair is elected by the State Central Committee, which is about 480 voting members.
Okay.
And they're comprised of, for those who don't know, the counties, their chair, vice chair, secretary, and bonus members.
So when will that vote take place?
That's March 29th.
So that's coming up.
It's very soon.
And how many names, or I've read 3 names, is that accurate? Or
so far there are 4 names.
4 names?
And then some rumored names. So there's myself, there's Britta Horn, Kevin McCarney, Lori Sane, and then there's a couple more rumored that may jump in.
And somebody is going to be steering the Republican Party thick and thin. We open up the phone lines now, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. In studio, kind enough to come in, Darcy Schoening, and a lot has happened since the great sit-down in the IHOP. And Dave Williams yesterday afternoon announces that he's not going to seek re-election. And so whatever happens, that's now a wild card. And one of you 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever the number really is, do you want the job?
I want this more than anything I've ever wanted, aside from maybe when I was pregnant and wanted my children to arrive.
All right. So, having said those things, what does the Colorado Republican Party need to do? Because it's what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I think that we need to look at the Colorado Republican Party for what it is. You know, it's easy to say, oh, the IHOP dust up and the lawsuits, and, you know, we're so dysfunctional.
That IHOP thing actually was nothing compared to the other things that have happened.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to remember what the liberal media here in this blue state wants to do to us, because, you know, at the end of the day, this is politics. We all have very distinct, very aggressive personalities. We're never going to all get along. So when we talk about unity, coming together, flipping seats, it's really just a matter of having common goals and making those goals work. So my goals for the Colorado GOP, one of them, which I'm very proud of, is my Build Our Benches initiative, which I've been working with donors across the state to build funds for our 2025 school board races. School board races have historically been termed nonpartisan, but they're not.
We know. No,
right. So we don't even have to address that. They're not nonpartisan. I hear everybody continuously mentioning we have to win in 2026. We have to win in 2026. We have to win in 2025 first. We have to flip school board seats. We have to protect our kids. And we have to start building an infrastructure. So that leads me to my second goal. On day one, I want to get in there and I want to build an infrastructure. I excel at that. That's what I did in my prior life before this, is building an infrastructure for companies. So data, processes, things that we can repeat in the next Colorado GOP for generations to come to ensure our success. For example, Greg Lopez running for governor. Mm-hmm. How is he going to be successful if he doesn't have on-point data, if he doesn't know who he's speaking to and how his presence is influencing that population or not to vote for a Republican? So as we build out those processes and that data, and we win more seats in 2025, we create a system, but we also give the donors more confidence.
Can the Republican Party, I was talking to somebody last night, we'll go to the phones in just a minute.
Yeah.
It seems to me, as a tracker of this, when Bill Armstrong, I don't know if you ever knew Bill or around Bill, I was a big fan of Bill Armstrong's, and I used to write for him. I'd write papers for him. And we didn't agree on everything, but he ran this state. I'm being told we got a minute. And he would things, you're running for Congress. You're sitting in that chair over there. And the state was red.
Right.
And when everything came apart with Bill Owens, Nighthorse Campbell, what happened to Tom Tancredo, all that stuff splinters the party.
Yeah.
And then the party seems to come back with, if not the worst candidates possible, some of the worst candidates possible. And now this last election, Donald Trump lost Colorado more the second time than the first time. So we'll set it up there. Calls are here. Music's in the background. In studio, Darcy's here. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. I'm Peter Boyles. Beautiful day headed our way. Folks on the phone, stay there. We're coming right back. 710 KNUS. to pick 'em. Adams on the con. It's a Saturday morning. It's almost spring weather. March 1, 2025. I heard you're working for the CIA. That's a great line in the song. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning. 67 the high, 64 on Sunday. Sitting in studio with us. She's in the eye of the storm after the great IHOP dust-up, which is really a great conversation off air. Darcy Schoening is with us, and we'll go to the phones in just a minute. But we were talking about the Republican Party going back to the days of Bill Armstrong, and I'm a huge Bill Armstrong fan. I wrote for him, and I'd go out to his office when he was at Christian University, and we'd sit in his office and talk. I mean, he was a brilliant, brilliant guy, and he understood radio and TV. They owned, they owned media outlets. And then Bill Owens was governor, and Nighthorse Campbell, and then everything all of a sudden just goes. And the Republicans, I don't think, with the exception of winning a seat on the CU Board of Regents.
Yeah.
Tell me a statewide office that your party's won.
Well, we haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't won
Now why?
a statewide office.
Why?
Well, several factors. I mean, we know that Polis and the Democrats, they had an aggressive approach to turning Colorado blue. And the Republicans were shocked, much like we were when we found out what the teachers' unions were doing behind our backs. It was a very similar situation to where we didn't really know what they had done until they had done it. I mean, that's why we call it the heist. It's what they heisted Colorado. So there's that. And then once they turned it blue, let's be honest, Democrats attract more Democrats. So we then were in a cycle where only people who are liberal are going to move here. I mean, good, hardworking Republicans are not going to move to the state of Colorado.
Or won't run for office.
They definitely won't run for office. They'll look at you and say, you've got to be crazy. I mean, who's going to run for office in Denver? You're a sacrificial lamb.
No, I just wrote a column about taking Make America Great Again and saying Make Denver Great Again. But part of the piece that I wrote was nobody wants it. Who wants to go in and have Cal Clark show a picture of them in the 6th grade in blackface?
Right. I mean, and that's what we run into with the liberal media. And we can't let them batter us. As you just said, Stapleton was like that. We can't be afraid. If we're afraid, then we may as well not have a party. So we need elected officials. We need candidates that are not afraid to stand up. And one of the things that I preach really, really often, we're not just going to suddenly wake up one day and be like, look, we've got a great candidate running in Denver, and that's going to be enough to flip the vote. It's just not. So when we look at, why did Trump win this last election? Because people were tired of Democrat decay,
I agree.
of their ridiculousness. A lot of people didn't even like Trump's personality, but they said, okay, he can get us out of this mess. Well, Colorado's no different. How many people are disgusted, tired with 16th Street Mall, with the illegals, with Aurora, with the gang shootings? So we as conservatives have to make it a point to not just say we've got great candidates, but hey, look, guess what? If you live in Denver or you live in Aurora, you live in a mess. But if you're in Douglas County, if you're in Monument, things look a lot better.
Sure.
Our streets are cleaner. Our kids have better test scores. There's less car thefts. There's less gangs. So we use those conservative areas to say to unaffiliated and to say to Democrats, this is what it means to be a Republican.
But the elections are won or lost, but won in the population centers. And all right, here we go. Let's go to the phones. We have one line open. We'll start with Michael in Denver. Michael, you're on a radio show. Our guest in studio is Darcy Schoening. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning, Darcy.
Morning.
Just a couple of technical questions about the service. Who is the plaintiff in the lawsuit?
The plaintiffs are the party officers.
Okay, so you are one of those people?
No, sir.
Oh, you're not. You're not currently an officer.
I'm not a party to the lawsuit.
Okay, very good. Well, that answers that question. So I was a candidate for the Republican Party in Denver, House District 2, this last session. I raised the most money that had ever been raised, over $40,000. I received the most votes that had ever been provided to a Republican candidate, over almost 15,000. There is no way to win in Denver. It's just not possible.
Is this Mike?
Mike DiManna.
Is it Mike DiManna? Yeah.
Yes,
hey, brother.
Yep.
Hey, man. Good morning.
Hi, Pete. It's just not possible. I actually got my Democratic Socialist candidate, Mr. Woodrow, to actually come out and debate me in person. Now, why he did that, I don't know, unless he thought he might have had some problem, but that's never happened. And I can just tell you that the people that watched it were very encouraged about my chances. That's why we raised the kind of money we raised. I got beat by 15 or 18,000 votes.
Yeah.
It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you what the key is, but I'm not afraid. I wasn't afraid to run. I'm happy to give people a choice.
Mike,
but Darcy, I think you're right. Until the people in Denver are sick and tired of what's going on, they're not going to do anything about it.
The column that I wrote, no big deal, but I believe what happened in this country was on a list of things of what was going on, including changing names of mountains and military installations and having your son out there beating up some little girl on a soccer field. I mean, it was a litany of things that won for Donald Trump. It wasn't just one or two issues. And also the fact that Joe Biden had no idea what time it was, and Harris was who she was. But the pot was right. The pot's right now. This guy who's the mayor of the city right now is, I mean, each time you think you can't get a worse mayor, you get one.
Yeah.
No, seriously, it's a heart attack.
Yeah.
You thought like, well, the last mayor, wow, was he bad? No, am I making this up, Mike?
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's absolutely true. I'll be interested. First of all, I don't even know why he's going to Washington. That's going to be an embarrassment for the city, but we'll see what happens. However, my campaign slogan was very simple. If you like things the way they are, keep Stephen Woodrow.
Yeah.
If you want to change them, vote for me. You know what the answer was? We like things the way they are.
Well, I mean, I still say, like, what happened in this country in the 4 years of the Bidens was election voting behavior is always interesting to read, and I mention probably every week this book, Shattered, that I tell people, you got to read it because these guys set out to talk about why and how Hillary Clinton was going to shatter the glass ceiling. And it turned out it was exactly the opposite, and they wrote exactly the opposite, that they would go into Indiana and go into Wisconsin and Ohio, and they'd find, working guys, working men and women, like, and they'd say, you told us to stick with you. We did. Now the Walmart's closed. I'm out of work. My kid has a drug habit, and now you're calling me a racist.
Right.
And people didn't like Hillary Clinton, and they beat her. And the same thing happened. People had enough of whatever this stuff is, and maybe, just maybe, and you'd be more apt to be able to answer it, maybe people are going to look around and say, that's about enough. And there has to be what historians call the man on horseback. There has to be somebody show up. And Mike, you may be the man, or there's a woman, no, I'm serious, it's a heart attack, that runs for mayor and make Denver great again.
Well, that's where we need to start, in my opinion.
Yeah,
if you cannot elect a different mayor in Denver, you're never going to win Denver.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing just quickly about the party and the infighting. I was really disappointed, Darcy, and I'll tell you this because I know who you are, and you would know me if we were talking to one another personally. There were other ways to serve this lawsuit. People could have called up Britta, asked her to accept service. They would eventually hire lawyers. The service could have gone through the lawyers. But to do it the way it was done, I just have to tell you, it is not the way to go. That's just my opinion. I'm one vote on the state central committee. It's going to be an interesting March 29th. When is the call going to come out, Darcy? Do you know?
That I do not know. It should be coming out. Well, We're not even. Well, we're
The
in March
call,
now.
what does the call
official
mean?
call for the reorg meeting.
Oh, okay.
So I would think it would come out in a couple weeks. We're at March 1st now, so yeah, probably in a week or two would be my guess.
Okay. But you're sure it's on the 29th?
Yes.
Mike, what's your take on what the next cycle is going to be like in the state of Colorado or the city of Denver?
Well, it went just as you said earlier. When you think it can't get worse, it does.
It does. It does. It does.
I mean, why this guy, why our mayor has decided to impose a 20% charge on eating out in Denver is beyond my comprehension.
Yeah.
But he simply, I guess he just doesn't believe. You know, I live in a part of Denver in House District 2. I can walk literally across Colorado Boulevard and be in Glendale and not have to put up with any of this crap. And that's what's going to happen. This city is going to go to whatever. But
no, it is. It's doing it.
I was born here. I'm a fourth-generation Denverite. I could tell you stories. You and I could sit down and talk for hours about how Denver used to be. It was a great city. It was a wonderful city.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And these Democrats have run it into the ground.
That's right.
And you're right, Darcy. People are leaving.
It's disgusting. So for those who don't know, I lived in Denver. I lived at 8th and Corona with my 2 kids and literally abandoned it. I didn't even finish selling my condo back before I hightailed it out of there back to El Paso County. There homeless people sleeping at the back door. You know, the kids were always asking me, why are there naked people passed out on the sidewalk with needles? But the final straw, I was just minding my own business, walking to the grocery store, and some drugged out homeless person just ran up to me and started throwing punches, punching me in the face, punching me in the side. Luckily, my dog was there to protect me. But that night, I called my parents and I said, I'm out. I'm leaving this city. This city cares more about criminals and a woke agenda than it cares about my children, and I'm out.
This mayor, if you look at this mayor, not RFK Jr., but rather the original RFK, if you noticed how and this guy is channeling him, he's always got the white shirt on. He's always got the sleeves rolled up. He's got the must hair. He's got a black tie, 3/4 of the way pulled down. He is channeling Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah.
He wants to be. But what you said about where you live, Michael, I need to tell you that Glendale is the true Magic Kingdom. It's
no
not
doubt about it.
It's not Disney World. It's Glendale. Glendale is the Magic Kingdom. I write for the newspaper, and I know they're listening this morning, but that is the Magic Kingdom.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That truly is. And you know, and I was just out of the state, and you go to places, there's no homeless people, there's no garbage, they don't put up with it.
No.
They run you out.
No.
And
well,
this idiot.
I was just in Washington D.C. for the inauguration. Washington D.C. is run by a Democratic mayor. There are homeless people. There are people sleeping in tents near the Washington Monument.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's doing anything about it.
But how did it happen? And again, Joseph Heller, who wrote Catch-22, his second novel was entitled Something Happened.
Yeah.
And I've always stolen that line because he always said, well, something happened.
Yeah.
And I really think it was a series of events that began back with Federico Pena and Roy Romer, and incrementally, systematically, it moved forward. And now it is what it is, And it was Wellington Webb declared Denver Sanctuary City. We did that billboard campaign, put the billboards up, and boy, did we learn a lesson with those billboards. But but they did it. And
you remember the sign on the city and county building from our last mayor? We welcome immigrants.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we put up too. We did the fundraising, and it said, "Relax, you made it."
That's awesome. That's great.
They brought smoke on us for that, but guys, I don't know, and I know people that are leaving. I mean, some of my big time friends, if I said their names, they're gone. They're not coming back.
Right.
And something has to happen, Darcy. Something has to happen, Mike. And if it can, it's like when they got to that moment, whatever you thought of Trump, you knew you couldn't take 4 more years of Harris.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think that happened. Yeah.
We're getting there.
Talk to people in Denver.
Yeah.
Talk to people in Denver. They love to and did vote for Harris. They just don't get it, Pete. They just don't. I don't know what we're going to have to do, but
I don't either.
Whatever it is, we've got to continue to stand up. And believe me, I'll stand up, and I know you will too. Good luck, Darcy.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
and
Mike.
You ran a great campaign.
Thank you. 303-696-1971. Darcy Schoening is with us. The city of Denver, the state of Colorado. The only hope really is, I mean, the Democrats aren't going to pull this out. The only hope is the GOP, but this GOP is so fragmented. I said to Bonnewell, we're talking, I said, members of the Republican Party hate each other more than they dislike the Democrats. True or false?
I think it's false. But we don't show it in
our
actions.
I don't.
I think it's. But we have. I mean, we have to work on common goals. If we do that, then it won't appear that way as much as it does right now.
All right, we're coming back. Stay here. 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Governor Greg Abbott is speaking out after a report that an entire city is being constructed in Texas that would be ruled by Sharia law. The governor taking to X saying, to be clear, Sharia law is not allowed in Texas, nor are Sharia cities, nor are no-go zones, which this project seems to imply. Bottom line, he said, the project as proposed in the video is not allowed in Texas. Governor Abbott's remarks come after a video was circulated on social media showing the plans for a 402-acre city that would allegedly be ruled by Sharia law. The community is called Epic Ranches, and it will feature a mega mosque and Islamic school, parks for mass prayer gatherings and Islamic festivals, and a community centered around Islam. The video promises that this new city, located near Dallas, will be the epicenter of Islam in America.
Through the help of all of the brothers and sisters and our prayers, it will be the epicenter of Islam in America.
Mubarak Epic City.
President Donald Trump says he's hopeful the war in Ukraine is coming close to ending as he met with French President Emmanuel Macron on the 3rd anniversary of the start of the war. Trump commenting on the state of the conflict, saying he believes Russian President Vladimir Putin would accept European forces in Ukraine to keep the peace. Trump also expressed hope the conflict can end within weeks, and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy will soon come to the U.S. to sign a deal to give the U.S. access to Ukraine's critical minerals to help repay some of the $180 billion in American aid that's been sent to Kiev since the start of the war.
I think we could end it within weeks if we're smart. If we're not smart, it'll keep going and we'll keep losing young, beautiful people that shouldn't be dying. And we don't want that. And remember what I said, this could escalate into a third world war. And we don't want that either.
Mr. President.
Many are now calling for property taxes to be abolished nationwide after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced in a news conference that he's pushing to end property taxes in Florida. Watch.
Okay, you've paid off the mortgage, you bought the land, you've been taxed many times. It's like, is it your property or not? Just for being on your property, you got to write a check to the government every year. So you're basically paying rent to the government to live on your own property. And our homestead exemption is not strong enough to help these folks. You're paying more. And a lot of people can't afford that. So I think that that's a big issue. And I know we're going to be really looking at ways to bring people relief from that.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
710 KNUS, Saturday morning. Good morning. I'm Peter Boyles. Good show, jam lines, open lines coming up. David Ellis. You heard me talk about David forever, and jewelers who get a fortune in cash and secure appraisals from David all the time on valuables that they tucked away in their homes. And it's true. So let me show you other reasons to see my friend, just in case you don't have a Rolex watch, rare coins, or a silver set. Go to David Ellis for all the meaningful gift-giving occasions. David Ellis Jewelers, just the right items for just the right folks. He's there now. He's there 7 days a week. An antique watch, an emerald pendant, a gold necklace, a diamond ring. This is a trusted man. Been buying precious metals and antiques in Colorado forever. I've known David for, I forget how many years now, 25, 30 years. Gold necklaces, diamond rings. Trusted jewelers, been buying precious metals and antiques in Colorado for decades. And he is my guy. Visit David Ellis. See for yourself 7 days a week. Look for the black awning on the corner of 3rd and Clayton and Cherry Creek. Explore DavidEllisJewelers.com. Ask for my friend David at 303-322-8779, 303-322-8779, and tell David that Peter Boyle sent you. In studio, and this really pops up from a Rich Wyatt interview, but then what happened in the IHOP with Jeff and Billy, her name is interesting. You'll hear the name more and more and more. Her name is Darcy Schoening, and she is now running for the seat to be the head of the GOP. And let's just start here. We go to Brian in Arvada. Brian, you're on the show with Darcy. Good morning. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, both. I'm a native of Colorado, Pete. We talked about it before. And, you know, in the 90s, I'll date myself. I'm in college in the 90s. And, you know, I'd have friends from out of state going to college with me. We'd go down to Denver, and they would just remark on how clean 16th Street Mall was, how clean the city was, how nice it was and safe it was. And now it's just it's a trash heap. And a couple years before COVID, I went down to watch a Rockies game with my kids. They were younger at the time, elementary school. And a homeless person, I wouldn't give him $1. I literally didn't have cash. I told him that. You got cash, gets in my face. And my kids are holding on to my pant leg like, is this guy going to hurt us? He's literally a foot away from me. We had to kind of sprint, you know, kind of jog a little away from him. And he couldn't run very fast. But he's chasing me down Blake Street. And I said, you know what? I'm done with Denver. I'm done. And that's when, you know, Stephen Tubbs made a big stink about it with Denver in decay. It sucks, Peter. It really does. And to watch this beautiful city go to hell, it just, what do we do? But these people vote for these people. Yeah. And what else can we do?
Well, that's the question that faces Darcy and faces really any reasonable human being, is how do you throw the switch? And I think you saw it in November why it happened. And I don't think it happened necessarily because of that man, more than it just happened with people who were just fed up. And he offered the way out.
You're right. And we're on the Portland, we're on the San Francisco model. My wife went to Portland a few years ago on a business trip. She's driving to the hotel, the Uber. She's like with her friends, where should we go to dinner tonight? And the Uber driver literally said, nowhere. Stay at your hotel. And they're all excited. And he's like, I've been here 25 years. He said, I've been Ubering for 5. Don't go downtown.
You know the story
Not at
when
night.
Mark Crowley, myself, and Stefan went to Vancouver, where they have legal injection. It was a vision of hell.
I remember that.
They were trying to bring it here. We've stopped it twice. We stopped it twice, but the Democratic Party, I don't know for the man, but plenty of Democrats, they bring that, and they have the places already staked out where you're going to be able to shoot junk. And I'm thinking these people were really legitimately out of their mind. The history lesson, as there always is, the Opium Wars in China. Yeah. The British and the Americans destroyed the Chinese empire with legalizing drugs. I mean, it's like, what's new?
Why do you think they're pushing fentanyl in here, China?
They're getting even.
From these China factories.
They're getting even.
Come on.
They're getting
destroying even. The only way to destroy a country is from within, and same with a city. Yeah. And to your guest, you know, I left the GOP after I say they torpedoed Tom Credo. I'm sick of hearing about from the Dick what not to do Wadhams.
Yeah.
He's coming
We
up
have
this
to
morning.
bring. Oh, great. Well, I won't be listening, Pete,
Okay.
because all he can tell you is what not to do. He can't tell you what to do.
Well,
and so, stop living the glory years and give us solutions and not just Dave Williams this, Dave Williams that. I'm just sick of it, Pete. We need to bring people together from the MAGA and from the center. And that's what someone needs to do in Colorado, or we'll lose every day.
Dave's now gone, and Dave was a lightning rod. Could we agree? I mean,
he had more success last year than KPP and Priscilla Ron. So what? Results matter to me.
But let me ask you a question.
What?
No, hold on a minute. Because Donald Trump lost by a greater amount the second time than he did the first time. So what does that say?
I'm not trying to save the presidency. I'm trying to save the state. He made more grounds in the state than he did those ladies.
You're going to say,
facts matter.
Listen to me. It isn't going to matter. But what I am asking, no, come on. Oh, hold on a minute.
But at least it was something, though.
No, they lost more. They lost by more.
Dave Williams, we gained seats in congressional districts and also in the state house, more than they did.
But they gained rhinos. that was the part I want to ask. Let me ask a question, and then you can.
Well, that's what Dick.
Well, could you mind? Do you mind? I want you to stay on the show, but come on, give me a. So and I was told yesterday that I'm not one of Dave's favorite people, which was a heartbreak, but. When he said stuff about burning gay flags and, the kinds of things that he said, and, he goes on a ballot, like, let's go Brandon. Well, that's not a guy that I think straight folks are going to take seriously.
I agree. I'm not a Dave Williams fan.
No, I'm not asking you. I'm asking Darcy, but thank you.
Okay.
Well, as far as the email goes, Dave's intentions on that email were good. He's always had the best intentions for the state of Colorado, for the conservative cause. I would have worded it a little bit differently. I would have done some things differently. But at the end of the day, that's part of being a leader, is making those tough calls. And as I've told log cabin Republicans, because I would have worded that somewhat differently.
Log cabins are gay Republicans.
Yeah, because I would have worded that differently. My promise as state chair is, I'm heated. I'm passionate, like we all are. I don't want to use one word that goes out into the media and changes the trajectory of our party. Now, I don't want to be bettered by the left. I don't want Democrats to put me in a corner and say, oh, you can't say that, you're racist. But I do want my communications team to eye everything and to say, yes, this message is on par with our party, or no, it's not, so that we know all the time the message is as good as it possibly can be and it's not doing damage.
But isn't that, back to both you and to the caller, and I put that in a piece, that some human being, male or female, that wants to really get their hands involved or get their hands wet and get into the race, and then somebody pulls up a picture in the 6th grade, they got a blackface. And people today are so, and rightfully so, because you can destroy someone's life, people are really, I'll use the word jumpy, but edgy about getting involved in politics, with the exception, and you're right, about the people who get to pass. First of all, Brian, I'll give you the last comment, and then we'll give Darcy the last comment.
Sure. And I get fired up, Pete, because I'm just so tired of hearing about the whole problem with the GOP in Colorado is you have to win the center without losing the right. And you have to win the right without losing the center.
Yeah.
Nobody's been able to bridge that gap. But all we have is naysayers every time we want to try to do something different than what hasn't worked. And then that always causes divisions from within. We need somebody, no one's been able to do it since Bill Owens, is bridge the gap between the right and the center.
Actually,
and we have to acknowledge that.
The guy you have to really look to is Bill Armstrong. But last comment, Darcy, please, and we'll get you back.
So to your point, we do have to bring the party together as much as we possibly can. Like I said earlier, we don't think differently. But as you guys saw in Washington, D.C., I had 300 people at our cocktail party for inauguration, both sides of the party. It's literally just about having common goals and putting everybody together in the same room.
All right.
Well, good luck
open
to
lines.
you.
Thank you, man. A good call. Very much good call. Thank you. Good to meet you. Hang on. girls, this is Saturday, March the 1st, 2025. Lines are jammed. Good old 710 KNUS. Thank you for being here. Sunny, warm, and 67, 64 Sunday and Monday, 60 degrees. Now we go to open lines. We started the first hour of the show talking about what happened in the Oval Office with Zelenskyy and J.D. Vance and the president. And I side with Donald Trump. And again, talking about the history of Russia, history of Soviet Union, history of the Republic and NATO, and comparing it to what was going on during Cuban Missile Crisis. We don't want you here. And then we're talking about the GOP, and then we're talking about any numbers of things. As you know, Dave Williams resigned from the seat. So instead of doing anything elaborate, let's just go to the phones and go to work. The one-eyed man is king, right? We go to Tracy in Longmont. Trace, out of the box, you're on the radio show Saturday morning. Good morning.
You know what? The one-eyed man really is king. Listening to all this conversation for the years I've listened to you, and I've learned a great deal. And you know, the one-eyed man that's king is actually on the state seal of Colorado. And in Latin it says "Nihil sin numi."
Yep.
Oh, okay. And that interprets nothing without providence.
Yes.
And the state motto of Colorado is the watchful, careful eye over all of God's creation.
Yes.
And if you walk around the Capitol and you look at the architecture and the lamp poles and the mall and the fallacy and then you got the Immaculate Conception over there. You got the Scottish Rite Temple. You got the Pillar of Fire, Alma. Yeah. I mean, it really was some sort of providence, but you know, it doesn't seem like they can define it. So.
Well, but remember who Washington and all those guys, they were Masons, and the Masonic Order, and of course the all-seeing eye actually comes out of Middle East, and that's why their traditions, and I don't pretend to understand.
Well, can I say something about that?
Sure.
Being as we're on this subject, all right.
Sure.
Well, you know about it being the Masons.
Sure.
If you look at the Great Seal on the back of the dollar,
Absolutely.
I actually found I have a $10 bill from 1934, and it doesn't say "In God We Trust."
No,
and I learned
that comes in the 50s. That comes
in 54, it's Columbus.
Right.
Yeah, the Knights of Columbus, and the responsibility of them back to the Immaculate Conception.
Well, no, it was in the time of UAC and the time of McCarthyism, and the Knights of Columbus. It was in the Eisenhower administration, and then they wanted "In God We Trust" on the cash, and so it did. And if you remember Madalyn Murray O'Hair, the great atheist, who wanted that taken off of American currency, "In God We Trust," and I actually met her. She was murdered, and but that comes 1954, the height of the Cold War, and "God We Trust" appears on the money for the first time.
Okay, well, there's the anagram on the dollar. I'm sure you're aware of it. If you make the Star David out of the pyramid where it says "Novo," so it spells Mason at all the points.
Now, it's the money is. There's been books written about American paper money, and when paper money comes in, and what paper money.
Well, in God we trust. Why is there a pickaxe and a hammer on the state seal of Colorado? Also,
well, that's about mining. That was mine.
Well, that's right. That's why there's paper money, because they you know, it's easier and it's more tangible to use that type of currency for labor.
I mean, but before and again we go off the gold standard with Nixon, so that's the end of that. But having hard currency and paper currency, that was quite a fight. And
well, you know, so you know, what about this sexual business and stuff that's going on? How, you know, considering watchful, careful eye and what the sacraments are and catechesis and things, you know, and Paulus, he's an antagonist to those things, and so there's this big struggle between theologies, you know.
States used to issue their own money, and banks would issue their own money, and all of that comes under a control. But no, I mean,
well, but they're still just, regardless of all the corruption, but labor is labor, and a hire is a hire.
Yeah,
if you hire, it's not that difficult. So I don't understand why everybody wants to drag all these different, sects. It's like Hillary Clinton and back to the guys up there in Wyoming that killed that guy. And I really appreciate you having that guy on. That we're you know what I'm speaking about.
Are you talking? Yeah. Who? I mean, because there's a lot of people got killed.
That kid that was killed up there in Wyoming that hung on the. You know who I'm talking.
Are you talking about when they raided the cabin?
No, that kid.
Matthew Shepard. You're talking about Matthew Shepard. Yeah, that's a lie. That's the whole story's a lie.
Well, but look at how Hillary Clinton exploited that. I mean,
sure.
The first thing,
Listen, his parents exploited it. I mean, the media exploited it.
They were all homosexuals and practicing.
Well, they certainly were having sex together. And,
why did she have to make it a political issue?
Because they had an opportunity to do so, and they did it.
Well, I appreciate the
why did George Bush tell you Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11?
Why did he? That's really interesting. What if it was Tom Brokaw and Dan Rathers that were doing it?
Well, again,
the weatherman. You never know.
You never know. I love the call. You're always great. Thanks, Trace.
Right.
Be safe, man. All right. That guy's always comes out of nowhere. Hey, Don, we go to Don in Lakewood. Don, you're on a radio show. Good morning and thank you.
Good morning, Peter.
Brother.
So I'm glad to hear that you're siding with Trump on this issue with Zelenskyy.
Yes.
I'll tell you the one that shocked me was how adamant and vehement Lindsey Graham was.
Yes. No,
I applaud him for that.
Yeah,
I'm hot and cold on Graham.
The truth guides the way. I mean, you can't. One of the things that always troubles me, and I hear it more on talk radio, there's a regimentation, a dogmatic, always right or always wrong, and that isn't true with anybody. And Donald Trump is right on this one, and Vance is right on this, and Zelensky's wrong, and you go back, but you have to go back, literally centuries to see the roots of this and really what it's about, and to try and understand how Putin sees the world and how Joe Biden threw the world away. And it's not that tough.
No, and the thing that I hope they do is they investigate where all that money really went that got shipped over there.
Or who pocketed it, who put it away.
Well, come on, Elon. There's another task for you. Where's the money? Show me the money. Where's the receipts?
Well, you got to believe that he whispers in Trump's ear quite a bit.
Who, Elon?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'd like to see him along with everything else he's investigating. Hey, maybe there's nothing there, but don't be afraid to go after it.
Listen, the United States of America, according to my reading, has spent $20 billion. And now a lot of that weaponry has shown up in other markets. And look, you again, not to belabor this, but go back to Russian history, even before Bolshevik Soviet history, and the problems remain the same. And it doesn't matter whether it was Romanovs or Joseph Stalin or Vladimir Putin. They told them, don't come close, and this is why the United States of America got involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis. There were Russian, Soviet missiles were in Cuba. Kennedy said this will not stand. Putin's looking at them bringing NATO into Ukraine and saying, I can't have you here. You're too close. Joe, I was earlier when I was in school when I read about Stalin and how they saw the Germans. And at the end of the Second World War, and they're meeting in Yalta, they're meeting in Potsdam, and they're trying to discuss the future of Germany. And there are a series of letters which shows you I got to get a life. But Stalin wrote letters. He really did. But it was Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands, and she had written Stalin about what they're going to do. And Stalin said, "Look," he said, "twice in my lifetime, they've been at our throats." He said, "World War I, World War II, they come Barbarossa. They come after the Romanovs, and then they come after the Bolsheviks." And he says, and I'm paraphrasing, it's been a million years since I read it, but he said, if we let them unify and if we let them reindustrialize, they will be back at our throats. And he was talking about the Germans. And now the rise of the conservative movement inside of the German Republic. Now, I don't discount it, but in that case, Stalin was reading history, and the Romanovs were reading history. And so along comes NATO, that was invented to really to keep the Soviets were under, they called it Warsaw Pact, and they were trying to keep them in check. He knows who they are. And
was it NATO, the prior, wasn't that the League of Nations?
No, League of Nations is after the First World War, and the League of Nations fell apart because but
didn't NATO basically kind of replace it?
No,
to some degree?
NATO was after the war's over, and the Soviets are, it depends on who you read that said who starts the Cold War, and there's plenty of people that believe they're good historians that believe that Allen Dulles and his brother John Foster trigger the Second World War by what happened in Italy, and there was an SS general in Italy by the name of Wolfe, and he accepted the United States of America and Britain accepted Wolfe's surrender, and the deal was made earlier on that in Tehran that no one Axis power would be able to surrender to any one of the allies. They would have to surrender to all of them. And so in northern Italy, the industrial part of Italy, there was a huge communist party there of industrial workers. So they were getting ready to organize and rise, and they're going to have a communist Italy. And so John Foster Dulles' brother Allen was dealing with Wolfe. Wolfe was an SS general, and he let Wolfe stay in power. In other words, the United States was no longer at war with this part of the SS, but they were being used as police to police the communists, to disarm them and to really make their, to really do what they did best about other people. So here's Joe Stalin sitting there, losing, 100,000 men a week, and he sees this surrender take place. He's not allowed to be part of the surrender, and what they're doing is suppressing people who believe what Joe Stalin believed. Now, you can do whatever you want to do with that, but understanding Joe Stalin's mindset, that's the first step, and what people called was the beginning of the Cold War. Now, whether that's true or not, but there's a book called The Secret Surrender, and it's about Allen Dulles, John Foster Dulles, SS General Wolfe, who goes on to do other things. After the war is over, they use him in NATO. And it depends on how many people there's an estimate of God knows how many people in the Soviet Union died. And versus, and it's a good thing that our guys didn't die, but even when they got to what's called the last battle, to go to Berlin, and so FDR stops Eisenhower and Patton, Bradley stops everybody on the Rhine or just crossing the Rhine, and they allow the Soviets to go into Berlin first. And the United States, we should have been able to go to Berlin, but the death toll and what those Russians did when they got into Berlin, but what they were doing was they were getting even for what the Germans had done to them, and we don't understand that. We don't want to understand that, but
that's getting really deep for a lot of people.
But
I've heard that thing about Wolf before.
Oh, Wolf was in.
I forgot where I read that about Dulles. I've read a lot about Alan Dulles.
Oh man,
despicable individual he was.
Oh, he was
one of the worst.
Behind the Bay of Pigs.
So, Pete, quick question:
Sure.
Where did we have the rocket set up that Khrushchev said Kennedy had to pull out? Was that Turkey?
Turkey.
You had them on the border
and Greece. Yes.
On the border.
Turkey and Greece.
Turkey and Greece.
They were Jupiter seas.
So. That's what I was thinking.
So they came out.
Was that? They came out prior to.
No, they came
Khrushchev removing the rockets from Cuba.
Same time.
Same time. So that was part of the deal. You pull yours, we'll pull ours.
And the American people never knew it. And they thought that Kennedy was and he did. I mean, he saved. There was no nuclear war and came close, but the deal was made. Kennedy then recognizes the right for Castro to exist, and it's a violation of the Monroe Doctrine. It's a violation of Truman Corollary to Monroe Doctrine, and that raises the ire of the Republicans and the CIA, and of course organized crime can't get back to get their casinos back, and it was.
Well, if he realized the right for Castro to exist, and why did he and his brother continue to try to get him executed?
His brother did. Bobby did. Bobby, there was two things.
I know, but John had to know about what was going on with the lawsuit of the CIA.
I just finished this book called Sons and Brothers, and but there was two operations. One was called Mongoose, and then there was a group called Alpha 66, and there was another group called Omega 7. And they were by and large Bay of Pigs guys. Some of them turned up as Watergate burglars, but they stopped the United States after Pigs, and then after the Khrushchev sit-downs, and they said, okay. And by the way, it ends Khrushchev's career, but Jack Kennedy says, okay, we'll allow him to be here unencumbered. And by this time, the rogue factors have gone to work through organized crime, through Carlos Marcello, and through Santos Traficante, and probably Jimmy Hoffa has a hand in it, and they're going to overthrow Fidel, and I think it leads to Jack Kennedy's murder. I really do.
They'll never ever expose who was involved completely in Kennedy's murder.
Or better yet,
that web is so big.
Oh. Last week we were all going to see all the paperwork. We haven't seen it, have we? It's like, where's the paperwork?
I don't want to see anything redacted right off the bat.
Of course, you're going to do that. They're not going to.
They need to get rid of redaction. In other words, cover my ass.
You got Dr. King's files. You got certainly Jack Kennedy. Whatever's out there on Bobby Kennedy, all the stuff that's out there, and Trump came real close to it, and then all of a sudden we're not seeing the truth. I think I can believe what's there, and I think it's precisely what you and I just got done talking about. Great call, man. Well thought out. We're coming back. We have a line open. It's open lines, and it's a Saturday, and I'm Peter Boyles, and it's a beautiful day, 67. Stay here. everybody. Saturday, March 1st, 2025. One line's open. 303-696-1971. 67. Woo! 64 Sunday. 60 Monday. Motorcycle was outside. The capitalist law firm and Danny. Danny suggests that you choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says so much more about you and who's involved in the case. And Dan Kaplan's son of a Denver, we've talked about it, a Chicago cop, and everything he's done with his life. And he's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in a serious motor vehicle crash. And Danny has come through for my family. He's just been a great friend of mine. I did his radio show with him about, 6 weeks ago. And Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. He's believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. He is the man. Now they're the official law partners in the Nuggets and the Avalanche. Come a long way because he does good work. Dan Kaplan's Law, a serious firm for serious people, serious cases. He accepts righteous injury cases on percentage fee basis, so he represents good people from all walks of life without regard of ability to pay. You need Dan's help? Pick up the phone, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dancapitalislaw.com, CAPLASlaw.com. Back to the phones we go. We go to Evergreen and Lynn. Lynn, you're on the show. Good morning.
Hello, Peter. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call. I'm going to make an analogy here. I had a rebellious daughter who just fought me, for years of my life. And I kept throwing money into the pot, saying, maybe if your financial worries are fixed, you'll stop fighting me. Yeah. And I did it time and time and time again. I can't even tell you, well, I could, but I'm not going to, tell you how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars I put into that pot. And she just kept beating me up, blaming me, accusing me, you're a bad parent, blah, 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 blah. And I finally said, if you don't want to come to the table to help me and help you, then I'm done. I'm done with it. That's the Zelensky-Trump, encounter. Zelensky comes to the table and says, oh, I'm going to blame you for this, I'm going to blame you for that, and by the way, I'm not going to account for the money you gave me, and I don't care that you've helped me, but you don't know my plight, you don't know my despair. Yes, we do. We do. We just want to help you make peace. Please come to the table and make peace.
And one of the promises Trump makes is, Gaza and Ukraine. And again, going back to, and I don't want to go back over it again, but the Ukrainians, and I know this is going to throw some people off, but you're asking for it when you start bringing NATO into that backyard of the Russians. And
you're fighting, Zelensky, hello, pay attention. You're fighting a losing battle. The war of attrition. You're going to lose. You're going to lose.
Well, it would have been over if it wasn't for the U.S. principally with $20 billion worth of hardware. But the plan to supply the Ukraine with artillery ammunition, air defenses, drones, weapon systems.
With no accountability.
None.
Show me the receipts.
Well, now it's...
And all those dollars, billions of dollars, show me the receipts. Well, show me what you've done, which many of them disappeared, and they can't account for.
Well, it's also now some of the weaponry is ending up in secondary markets. And
there you go. Boom.
And so... Did I still get back to this? If I'm going to the banker to borrow $5,000 or $10,000 or something, I go in with a ripped sweatshirt, and I pick a fight with him. Why in God's name is he going to lend me money? I mean,
They won't. They won't.
But
I mean, they have to be cut off at a certain point. If they can't come to the table and discuss and talk reasonably about their situation, I'm in Ukraine, Zelensky's situation, he's fighting a losing battle. He's not willing to be reasonable. All he wants to do is stay on the pity pot, poor me, but you created this situation.
Well, it goes back and forth. The Ukrainians and the Soviets, or the Ukrainians and Imperial Russians, or the Ukrainians and the Republic, or whomever it is, there's always been problems. There was the Ukrainians fought them, and they fought the Ukrainians. Ukrainians fought the Poles. They fought back. They fought the Swedes. The Swedes fought back. They purged the kulak class of bourgeois, of middle class farmers. They got purged. Khrushchev is there.
I'm not excusing Russia at all.
No, I'm not making.
Russia really started this whole thing, but Zelensky, he wants to fight to the death.
Well,
and it's the death of his country. It's the death of his country.
But it is again this moment where they wake up one morning in 1962 and find that there's missiles in Cuba. And Jack Kennedy is not going to tolerate the missiles that close to our shores. If NATO were to get inside of, and they wanted to bring in NATO, they were surrounding, in the paranoid world of Russians, whether it's Romanovs or Bolsheviks, they can't allow this to happen. And
that's why Trump, back in 2017, gave Ukraine Javelin missiles. Not blankets, not sheets. He gave them military. I'm sorry, not boots on the ground, but he gave them military equipment to stave off the Russia onslaught, on the border. I mean, but does Zelensky care about that? Well, maybe he does. But no, thank you. I want what I want, and that's all I want. It sounds like my daughter, my rebellious daughter, says, I want what I want, and I want it now.
Well, in the wake of Friday's fireworks in the White House, now they turn to the continent, turn to Europe, and see what they want to do. But let's see if our gallant allies, the French, do, or.
It's about damn time Europe took care of their own continent. I mean, it's about time they stepped up and said, "This is our continent. Yep. We will go against Russia and protect our continent." It's not up to the USA to do that.
No, of course not. It's not your fight. Listen, thank you so much. We have one line open, and this is Jim in Westminster. Hey, James, you're on the show. Thanks, and good morning.
Hey, how you doing, Pete?
I'm good, man.
Well, we will not be talking about Elon Musk's wardrobe, so we'll save that for Fashion Week.
Thanks.
Now we get back to the meeting and Zelensky and Ukraine. So Ukraine has always come, I mean, since the war started, even before that, from a position of weakness. I mean, if you're sitting next to the big bully on the block. I mean, and earlier, when the earlier show was asked, what would we do? Would we supply everything we could to win the war? And I know you didn't supply the question, but my answer to that is the only way you could win the war would almost bring about World War III, because we would have to win the war, we would have to go in ourselves. Well, we would have to send, it would be almost nuclear war to win the war. So, I mean, coming from a position of weakness, Zelensky should have come into the White House with hat in hand, and I'm not saying you give everything, but from that position of weakness, right now, Putin is, I mean, they're stalled out. The war's stalled out. I mean, Putin is willing to do with every single oligarch, every single czar, every Stalin. He's willing to sacrifice as many people many troops as it takes to win the war.
If you read again the mindset, and they during the time of the Romanovs, it was an empire, and then everything comes apart, and then under Joseph Stalin, and it's really weird because we won't understand it, but they were walking tall, they were walking proud, they were a big power on earth. Now, what went with it was Joseph Stalin, and then comes Khrushchev, and then the rest of it. But in the mind of the Russian or Soviet citizen, they were not a second-class citizen. They saw themselves as a world-class power. And then after everything happens, after perestroika, after everything falls apart, they're a third-rate country. And I was in Russia the summer after perestroika, the summer after the demise, and I'm a geek about Russian history, and there's a place called the Finland Station, and it's where the when the German military put Lenin and his wife and his staff, they put them in a train car in Switzerland. They gave them the money, and they sent them to the Finland Station that was in St. Petersburg, and they got off there to take apart. There's the Bolsheviks are not in power. The Mensheviks are in power. Alexander Kerensky and the Mensheviks. And so they get off the train at this place. So the train's there, and I knew the train was there. So we had this really wonderful woman that I'm sure at one time she was a functionary. She spoke perfect English. We had a car. And I told her I wanted to go to the Finland Station, and she said, "What?" And I said, "I wanted to see the Finland Station." And I told her why. And she said, "Let's go." So we go to the Finland Station. It's summertime. Place is full of drunk kids, drunk men, drunk women, half a Navy suit on, half a uniform on, half an Army jacket on, drunk off their cans. And I walk way down this centerpiece of the Finland Station, all the way in the back. Behind plexiglass is the train that Lenin rode from Switzerland to the Finland Station. And on that spot, the world changes. And I had a long conversation with the woman who was my escort. And we talked and talked and talked, and they were all amazed that I knew even anything at all about it. But I could see the remnants of empire. You could see these guys, and then the follow-up story is this guy's been driving us for 3 days on my grandson, and he's the typical bullet head, like you don't want to tangle with this character, and so he doesn't speak any English. So one of the places I wanted to go see, and it's called the Brown Building. It was the NKVD. The Cheka, when Lenin and the Bolsheviks were purging old Mensheviks or whomever it was, it didn't matter, enemies of the state. So it's just a Tsarist era old brown building. But I wanted to see it. I'd read so much about it. So we get out of the car, and the driver gets out, and the guide gets out, and my wife gets out, and I get out, and I said, "I have read that from the roof of that building, you can see Siberia." Now remember, we're in Leningrad, or in Stalingrad, pardon me. We're in St. Petersburg. And this guy starts to laugh. And I mean, truly, Jim, he hasn't said a word in English for 3 days. And he goes, And I looked and I said, this fill in the blank can speak English. So I said, "Who are you?" And he was, at one time, a Soviet cruiser, which is a big ship, cruiser captain. And one day he doesn't have a job, but he speaks English because he's up against America, and he becomes a driver. And after that, we talked. But for 3 days, only the woman translator, only the woman guide spoke, And I wanted to go to the Heights where they held the Germans off, and I wanted to see the lake, and we went to the battleship Potemkin, and all this kind of cool stuff, Potemkin steps, stuff that I wanted to see. And they were all about it. Just nobody wants to see this stuff. And I wanted to go see they call it the Great Patriotic War, saving Mother Russia, all that kind of stuff. And when you put yourself in their place and you wanted to know their stuff, God, they loved you. They were introducing you to their friends and, taking you to restaurants, and that's all on the level. I mean, it was like, because I knew a little bit about their stuff, and they thought no one knew their stuff. So
Zelenskyy knows far better than we do the Russian mindset. Putin will not lose this war.
Let me put you on hold here a second, because that way we can take our break, and we'll come back on the other side. One line is open. It's Saturday, almost saying good afternoon. 67 sickles outside. 710 KNUS. Adam's got the con. Let's do a turnaround.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Senator Eric Nesbitt is calling out the Democrat governor of Michigan, who is once again asking residents to pay more in taxes to fix the roads because they don't have the money. Nesbitt taking to X to say Gretchen Whitmer just said we need to find new sources of revenue, parentheses, more taxes, to fix the roads because we don't have enough money. However, we did have $4.5 billion for corporate welfare, $125 million for a Chinese Communist Party-linked battery plant, $1 million for horseback riding in Detroit, $2.9 million for e-bikes, $2 million for a boxing gym, $10 million for a zoo, and $15 million for aerial drone projects. Nesbitt goes on to say, like every other Democrat governor before her, she's pushing for higher taxes in the name of fixing the roads, and once the money is in her hand, she's going to spend it on everything but. Whitmer campaigned on fixing the roads when running for office and has dubbed her new plan My Road Ahead plan, in which she plans on raising $1.6 billion in additional revenue by taxing trucking companies, saying they should, quote, pay their fair share to do business in Michigan, according to local media. Whitmer also wants to spend an additional $1.2 billion for roads, bridges, and transit that she'll get by raising taxes at the pump. Michigan drivers pay 6% sales tax on gas and a 31-cent per gallon fuel tax. Of the $3 billion raised, $1 billion would be used on local roads. Critics say when Whitmer first took office, she proposed a 45-cent gas tax increase to deliver on her 2018 campaign pledge to fix the roads. After lawmakers rebuffed her, the governor moved forward with a $3.5 billion road bonding plan approved in 2020. They said that eventually cost taxpayers $6.5 billion. Whitmer warned in a speech at the Detroit Auto Show last month that Michigan faces a road funding cliff. U.S. Agency for International Development Workers, Summonteers, are carting away belongings from a final visit to their now-closed headquarters. The Trump administration's rapid dismantling of the controversial agency is moving into its final stages. The move comes after DOJ discovered billions of dollars being wasted, sent to foreign countries to push DEI initiatives, and even found funding was being funneled to terrorists or organizations linked to terrorist groups. Notices sent out in mass mailings this week are terminating over 90% of USAID's contracts, and the Supreme Court has temporarily blocked a judge's order requiring the administration to release billions of dollars in foreign aid. The administration notified most USAID staffers this week that they were on leave or terminated.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
Here we go. Saturday, 67 will be the high, 64 tomorrow, and Monday you got a little rain in the cast. This is the first morning of March. 710 KNUS. I want to give the caller a chance to finish. I kind of dominated that conversation. That wasn't fair. James, you went on hold so you could finish up. So if you would, it's all yours.
Well, just to finish up, Zelenskyy, for the good of his country and the position they're in, really needs to get the best deal possible.
Yes.
Because going from now on, you're not going to get any better deal. Right now, you're going to get the best deal possible right now. So, going forward, Putin's position only gets stronger. Unless we're willing to sacrifice and Trump's not going to go to war. So, the best deal possible you can get is right now. And Zelenskyy must know this. And let's face it, he's meeting with all these European leaders right now. If they haven't stepped up by now, they're not going to step up.
Well, that's right.
That's right. So he's looking at the best deal possible he could get. Did it look good? I don't. With Trump, I don't know. I think it might have been just for a photo op. To me, that doesn't really care. I'm not going to lose sleep over whether Ukraine brokers the deal tomorrow or not. I don't want to see any more human beings lose their lives over this war, Russian or Ukrainian. But I don't understand what the purpose of Zelenskyy is to go in and not just broker the best possible deal that he can get right now.
Well,
so
that's always the when it's like when you read history and the Blitz is on and the British have their backs to the wall and all of these different people inside of Britain, inside of Parliament, want to make a deal with Hitler, and the same thing is true. This is the best deal we're going to get, but they had a fighting chance. They had the right guy, and they had, of course, Winston Churchill, and he was backed up by FDR. Well, I don't care how much Zelenskyy has, he doesn't have an FDR in his corner, not anymore, and he had Joe Biden in his corner, but Joe didn't know what was going on. Look, this is a very precarious moment, and when, I don't know, I think it was Vance that said, what are you risking World War III for? I thought that was a great line.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Pete.
Be safe. You too. Let's go to Paul in Denver. We're coming up on time. Hey, Paul, you're on the show. Good morning.
Hey, Peter. Just a quick change of pace.
Sure.
I live in Denver, and I live out by the old Lowry base in that part of Denver.
Right.
These Republicans, none of them come around to see anybody. They need to go out and press the flesh every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Make people see that they don't have tails and a horn.
Yeah.
They need to go to the grocery store. They need to go to people's houses. They need to go to community meetings. And they need to do it for more than just 2 weeks before the election. They need to start months in advance and work it.
I agree.
That's what they need to do.
I've often said to my Republican friends who are anti-abortion, I said, great, you want to be anti-abortion, but you don't want to take care of the kid when he's born or she's born. It's the same mindset you're talking about. If you want to be anti-abortion, that's fine, but what are you going to do when the baby's born to a woman that already has 3 kids?
Yeah.
You want to take care of that kid? Well, not really. Well, then stay out of the fight.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, these people, different ones I've seen and they're running for office and they never come to see anybody.
Oh, no,
they have to go to everybody's door, door, whether Democrat, Republican, Independent, Socialist, doesn't matter. Go there and say, hi, I'm running for this kind of, you may not agree with me, but I just want to come see you, want you to meet me and say hello.
And if you think of the legendary old Democrats that ran cities, they would have never tolerated this kind of behavior inside the city.
No.
It just wasn't gonna be. And when the old machine politics like Chicago, they were never going to tolerate. Do you really think that there wasn't going to be any teacher strikes. There wasn't going to be any fireman strikes. There wasn't going to be any homelessness. There wasn't going to be junkies in the park. They would have never put up with that.
I can't tell you how many times last summer I had to kick bums out of my alley who were sleeping by my back gate.
Sure. How many?
4 or 5 at least. And one of them even had a tent pitched up back there.
Yeah, sure.
They'd bring a mattress over, and I'd go out there and I'd throw it all away. And the next, 2 or 3 days, there'd be someone else back there.
Oh, I mean, I totally agree. And that's a lot. I come back to this mayor. And if you thought, well, we had Michael for mayor, and you thought, and before that we had Hick. You think, well, Hick's a lousy mayor. Wait till you get Michael. What a bad mayor. What do you get this joker?
This guy's deadbeat.
But there has to be, as I said, somebody steps up and says, and Democrats and Republicans alike see this man or woman and see them as they're not going to tolerate what's taking place, and they're going to revamp the cops. They're going to do all the different things that need to be done. But, like I said, I wrote about it. I said, so some guy, and they'll dig it up. There's a picture of him blackface in 12th grade or 11th grade or whatever grade, or he did this, he did that. And then that's somehow, my God, I mean, if people knew this, the things I did with my life, and I suspect the things that did with your life, you couldn't step into the spotlight. You couldn't run. You couldn't run for office.
No way.
Yeah, me neither.
And then all you got to know about the city is they're giving money away to people who shouldn't even be here and giving them housing and stuff. But you call 911 and they can't take care of you.
Take care of yourself. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
See you, bud.
All right. Hey, this is Rex and Greeley. Rex, you're on a radio show. Thanks. Saturday, man. Hi.
Mr. Peter Boyle, I'm glad to talk to you. And it will sound disjointed and naive, but I just want to throw some subjects at you. I'm near your age. I just want to tell you, I have been weary of the Russian boogeyman since I was jumping under desk in the 50s.
Both of us.
Thank you for saying that.
Both of us.
I'm just saying it's an existential threat. Is not what I'm concerned about. I almost wish there was a nuclear war instead of the decay of our internal United States of America, and nobody's looking at it, if I may just say that. And may I also ask you, I have heard that in the 50s, Senator Joseph McCarthy was so demonized, but I want to ask you, what do you think? He was a prophet. I'm just asking you just to kind of help me out here in a way. I mean, really, we have communists here. It's a hard question, I know.
He was making stuff up. I mean, he was the West Virginians, and I think it's in Weirton or Wheeling when he gets off the train and claims he has this list of communists that are in the state departments and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they really did witch hunt. When you think about it, Joe McCarthy never put one person in jail. But he ruined a lot of lives, but he never put anybody in jail. And
but he ruined instantly. I'm just asking. I mean, is he wrong now today with what we see that's disguised as the Democrats or the far left? I'm asking. I mean, these people do not give a rip about America.
You know what I think is fascinating? In the 60s and first part of the 70s, when America becomes radicalized, and the so-called SDS and the far left.
Oh, gosh.
They all
for democratic society, yes, sir.
But they all said the same things about a state that was being operated by this or by that or by this or by that. Now here we are in 2025, and it's the conservatives that are saying the same things that the far left said in the 60s, that the place is being run by an invisible empire, by a government, a deep state, a secret, a shadow government. That's what the SDS said in 1968, and this is what the Trump supporters say in 2025. I'm fascinated by that.
And I want to leave you with your answer, sir.
All right.
But if Biden didn't call off the prosecutor in Ukraine, did not withhold the billions of dollars, would we have any investment after that? He never said anything. Will we have an investment in Ukraine?
I got 10 seconds. You call me back next week. I love your call. Call me back.
Thank you, sir.
All
You
right.
take care.
Most hated man in the Republican Party next on 710 KNUS. a Saturday morning. Incredible weather. It's going to be 67. Get on to see the Devil's Head boys. 64 tomorrow and 60 on Monday. What a day it's been. 303-696-1971. Great calls. Most of the focus is on the Oval Office yesterday, but in our studio, this was because of what it had. Well, a number of reasons, but Darcy Schoening came in, and we were talking about, once again, the GOP, and Dave Williams steps down. He won't seek another term as the Colorado GOP chairman. As I was billboarding, the most hated man in the Republican Party. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome home to Dick Wadhams. Richard, good morning. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Good morning, Peter.
All right. Believe me, I went back and watched part of this, what happened in the IHOP with Jeff and Billy and Darcy. And I had to call Bonnewell yesterday. I was driving back from Weld County. I was up with Steve Wells. And I said, explain to me. Explain to me this entire thing from start to finish. And you've been an open critic of what we've been watching. And now Williams has stepped down. And now is a jump ball for who's going to be the next chairman. I turn it over to you. Can you explain everything that we've watched for the last couple of years?
Well, we've had a state chairman and his fellow officers and supporters within the state committee who have essentially declared war on any Republican who doesn't meet their very narrow definition of purity. And that is what caused the divisions in the party. This lawsuit that you allude to that came up in this IHOP situation, I was not involved in the effort to remove Dave. I'm not a member of the state central committee. I have been a very vocal critic, as you point out, but I'm no expert on what the dynamics of it are. But the only two things I would say is that it struck me from what I read that it was perfectly legitimate for that group to try to remove him. And then the second question I have is, I keep hearing this $100,000 figure that they paid for legal expenses to fight off the lawsuit. Well, what lawyers got all that money? I don't, because I don't know the answer to my question, but that would be interesting. I wish Darcy would have mentioned that today.
I wish I would ask. I hadn't put that together. That was my fault. So when, I was talking to a good friend last night. I'm trying to write some of this stuff down. This really goes back, and a man that I just thought was tremendous was a guy named by the name, and his name was Bill Armstrong. And for the folks that don't know, Bill was a U.S. Senator, and he really was Mr. Republican. He ran, and I say this with an iron fist, Colorado. And I was lucky enough when he went to Colorado Christian University after his time in the Senate. And then he had a newspaper, and he would ask me to write things, and I'd write positions for him, and I'd go out and sit in his office and talk to him. And he really was, Dick. I mean, that was a smart guy. And then it's Bill Owens, and it's Nighthorse Campbell, and it's all these different people. And then there always seemed to be a scandal kind of skimming around all of this stuff. And then comes this goofy moment where the Republicans are going to run, if you remember, they're going to run this one guy, and it turns out that he's a plagiarist. And so they find another guy who turns out to be a total phony, and then they really step on Tom Tancredo. Who did all of that? Who was the people that knocked those guys down?
Well, let me start off by, you mentioned Senator Bill Armstrong.
Yeah.
Peter, I worked for him for 9 years.
I know you did.
And then even after he left the Senate, before he went to Colorado Christian University, I shared an office with him downtown where he conducted his business dealings and I did my political work. And so even after he left the Senate, I was around him practically every day when we were sharing an office downtown. before he became CCU president.
He was quite the guy. He was quite the guy.
I share that attitude about Armstrong, and frankly, Peter, what is interesting to me, there's so many of the people who are involved in the party today have no recollection of the kind of leader he was. It was a long time ago. He left the Senate in 1990. I really didn't get the impression that Darcy really knew who you were talking about.
She may have not.
It's a long time ago. He left the Senate 35 years ago in 1990.
Yeah.
But he was a magnificent man, and the Republican Party. This was not a red state back then, but it was certainly a competitive state, and we have gotten away from a lot of the things that made Colorado a competitive state. Now, I will say, Peter, part of our problem in Colorado is the fact that 800,000 people moved here.
Indeed.
In the last 15 years, and they have dramatically changed the electorate. You were talking to that one guy about Denver, a couple of people about Denver, and it has changed the electorate. This is now a blue state, and it's been driven by those new voters who arrived here in the last 15 years, 800,000 of them. And 50%, just under 50% of Colorado right now are registered unaffiliated voters. About 26% are Republican or Democratic, 23% are Republican. And unfortunately, that half of the electorate that is unaffiliated, they have been voting against Republicans. And I know this is not going to sit well with a lot of the Trump loyalists out there, but they do not like Donald Trump. And as you pointed out, Peter, Donald Trump lost by 4 points to Clinton, 14 points to Biden, and 11 points to Harris.
Yes.
And I mean, that's just the brutal truth. There's no escaping it. Now, I know that some people believe Colorado, like Ron Hanks, he believes that Colorado was stolen by the Chinese. That Donald Trump actually won Colorado. But the Chinese stole the votes from him. So, anyway.
So, but I'm doing regression analysis. There was a time, and I include on that list Hank Brown. God, I used to have great conversations with Hank Brown. He was legitimately a smart man. Bill Armstrong he understood the media because his family owned, I think they owned KOSI, and I think they owned the Colorado Sun. I think didn't he own that newspaper, or their family owned the newspaper?
Yeah, the Armstrong family owned the Colorado Springs Sun before they sold it, and it later on went defunct.
And the radio station was KOSI. I think they owned KOSI.
KOSI, yeah. And he and his dad bought that back in the 60s, and then he sold it while he was in the Senate.
But, I mean, the guy understood the media. The guy understood all kinds of stuff. And he was a stand-up. And Hank Brown was the same kind of a guy. And there was all these...
I ran Hank's campaign in 1990.
A good man. And so now what? And so where do the wheels come off? Is it because... Who was the congressman that got caught plagiarizing all the water stuff?
Well, he was Scott McGinnis.
Scott McGinnis.
Yeah.
And, and they pounced, and then everything comes apart and never comes back.
But remember, Peter, that particular election started off with the Tea Party which was the driving force behind Dan Mays.
Oh, yeah.
And Dan Mays won the Republican primary. And then they dumped Dan Mays when it was revealed his resume was embellished.
Oh, man.
Charitable.
Yes.
But that all started with the Tea Party driving the campaign of Dan Mays.
I remember Dan Mays, and then Dan Mays' wheels came off, and Tancredo and I were very much involved in that, and it's one of the things that Tom and I get our biggest kicks out of. But then Mays wrote a book, and all this kind of stuff, and it was all nuts. That was the Democratic Party. But who weaseled into that was John Hickenlooper. That's where Hickenlooper came out of that split in the Republican Party.
Yeah. But Peter, this is the thing. The other thing that interested me about your interview with Darcy just yesterday, she put out I'm reading directly what she put out, that she wants to lead a crusade to.
I know.
For Tina Peters to be pardoned and that she wants to have Pam Bondi, the United States Attorney General, prosecute the judge who sentenced Tina Peters to that for that conviction.
Yep.
Now, you tell me, how does that help Republicans win elections?
It doesn't. And she and I, and this is sharing a off-air conversation, but we had that conversation. I said, you got to let that stuff go. But if you're going to try, one of the things that seems to me is, and I said this to another friend last night on phone, I said, the Republicans hate each other more than they dislike the Democrats. And
that's right. Well, Peter, but let me remind you something. As she was extolling the virtues of Dave Williams' wonderful leadership, she didn't mention the fact that for the first time in the 112-year history of the Colorado Republican Party, the party actually got involved in competitive primaries.
Yeah.
There has always been a policy of neutrality in competitive primaries.
Yep.
Dave Williams did away with that, and they endorsed in primaries. They spent party money attacking Republicans in primaries.
Oh, I know.
That has never been done before.
I know.
And guess who they attacked? They attacked Jeff Hurd in the 3rd District in Grand Junction. They attacked Gabe Evans up in the 8th District.
And those men won.
They attacked Jeff
won.
Frank, and those are the 3 that won.
That's right.
They 3 new congressmen. After they attacked him and those guys won their primaries, what did the party do for them? Absolutely nothing. Talk to Jeff Crank, talk to Jeff Hurd, talk to Gabe Evans, and not one of them got any help whatsoever from the Colorado Republican Party after they beat the party in the primary.
Oh, I know. And that was and when Dave ran, I was told by a close personal friend that I said, well, man, see me get Dave on the show. He said, you are not one of Dave's favorite people. And I went, wow. Well,
and this is the thing, Peter, is if Darcy is elected chair, is she going to continue this very divisive policy of endorsing Republicans in the primary and attacking Republicans in the primary? Is she going to do that?
I don't know.
I can hear that.
Today was the first day. Never met her before today. And there's a jump ball right now. They're going to go after it. And
the other thing that we need to know from candidates for state chair, do you support canceling the 2026 primary? Because that is another
next one.
Item of Dave Williams, even as he's leaving office.
I know.
And let's talk a minute about that, Peter. If the 75% of the state committee votes to cancel the primary, that means that there will be no primary election on the Republican side. That everything will have to go through the caucus assembly process, where only a few thousand people participate.
Yep.
So if we cancel the Republican primary, and honestly, every candidate for chair ought to come to grips and tell us how they feel about this. If we cancel the Republican primary, that means 950,000 Republicans will not be able to vote in a primary and essentially will have no role in the Republican nomination process in 2026. But it also means that 2 million unaffiliated voters will only receive a Democratic ballot in the mail because there won't be a Republican ballot. So you're going to have 2 million unaffiliated getting a Democratic ballot in the mail in the primary, but not a Republican ballot. How does that further the aims and the success of the Republican Party by shutting out unaffiliated voters and shutting out 950,000 Republicans from voting in a primary?
No, I agree.
I don't know.
This thing
Nobody
has
can answer that.
And again, there was in that movie American Graffiti that I recently watched again, and Paul Lamont's the actor who plays the guy that drives the 32 Ford Coupe, and he had a great line. He said, rock and roll's gone to hell since Buddy Holly died. And I'm looking at the Republican Party, and I said, what happened after the Armstrongs and the Browns and, you know, all those, they wouldn't have never done this. And
no,
they won. I mean, it was, I don't know. And now the infighting is, I don't know if other states have these infighting problems like this. Certainly on the national level, as you point out, the people that walked out on Trump in Cleveland, and we were there. I mean, the people now deny that they did it, but we witnessed them do it. I don't know. Can the Colorado Republican Party make a comeback and do such things as save the city of Denver or the things that need to be done? Dick, can it be done?
Well, I hope it can be done, Peter, because we are losing Colorado.
Absolutely.
Not only politically, we're losing the state to. We are becoming an Oregon or a Washington.
Oh, absolutely.
But this is the problem, Peter. When you have policies like we've been talking about abolishing the primary, attacking Republicans in the primary, using party funds to do that. The other thing that they tried to do is take away the votes of elected officials from serving on the state committee. That really makes a lot of sense. If we have another state chair that does these kinds of things, then the party's going to continue to be mired in these things. And I think that's what Darcy and every other candidate for chair need to tell us. Are you gonna fight to exclude 2 million unaffiliated from our process? Are you going to continue to attack Republicans in the primary elections? Is that what you're going to do? Because if that continues, Peter, the party will always be mired in the cesspool it's in right now, and it was largely driven by the crowd who runs it now.
17 after 12. Our guest is Dick Wadhams. We're doing a wrap-up. What a week it was. And when William stepped down, were you surprised that he did it?
No, I really wasn't.
Because
I figure that he is trying to get a job in the Trump administration,
okay.
And I have no doubt he might. I have no doubt, and that so it didn't surprise me. And Darcy had announced a couple weeks ago she works for him. I don't think she would have announced if he wasn't going to run.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I thought that as well. So now there's a bunch of hats in the ring. How does this dope out? How does it come out?
Well, as you guys talked about, there are 4 candidates. There's one other candidate that I would say comes from the same Williams wing of the party, and that's Lori Sain, the former Weld County commissioner.
Yep.
Then you've got 2 people who are kind of identified as establishment. Britta Horn, from I think she's from Ralph County.
Yep, saw that.
And then Kevin McCarney, he's from Mesa County. I don't know if those were the only 4 candidates, if there will be more.
Yeah.
You have to get a majority of the votes, so it might go more than one ballot on the 29th, so we'll just have to see.
Well, it certainly is a mess, and I don't know what can happen, but the state of Colorado hangs in the balance.
It does.
And I'm serious.
So all 4 of these candidates need to answer those questions. Do you favor abolishing the primary? Do you favor continuing to attack Republicans in the primary? What is your position? Do you want to continue what we've seen the last 2 years, or do you want to get the party back on a track like it was? And Peter, I'm glad you brought up Armstrong because.
Hang on, Dick. I'll give you a chance. Let me put you on hold here real quick. We're going to come right back on the other side. Then we'll get to open lines right away. 710 KNUS. March the 1st. Good afternoon, everybody. 67 the high, 64 tomorrow. It's 23 minutes after the hour. 12 back here next week at 9 o'clock. Dick's on hold for a few more minutes, and then we'll go to opens and wrap up the show. Ski resorts. And this is now March. March skiing is the best. I mean, it really is. And I haven't skied all year, but I've been through some health stuff. And really, I'm aiming at March, my grandson's spring break. And the three of us, he and my son and I, will be skiing together. The ski resorts are really, there's great snow up there right now. There's a storm coming in. Best winter sports equipment. Head to Larson Ski and Sport. John Marriott, his son Jack, everybody there. Paul. I've gotten to know like most of the people there, and everything I got that I wear for skiing comes from them. South of I-70 on Kipling, I would urge you. And this is a great time of the year for new equipment. If you're looking to rent or buy equipment, Larson's got you covered. Remember, with kids and grandkids, always, 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 always rent. They're dedicated to providing you with the best skiing experiences possible. The convenience of Larson's is unbeatable. Perfect stop on your way up or down the mountain. You'll find them large wooden building next. When you come out, there's, you see a first building there. When you come out from underneath the tunnel, and then the next one on the right, big wooden building. It's marked Larson's. 7 days a week, south of I-70 on Kipling. John Marriott, son Jack, Paul, everybody there. Larson's absolute experts at everything that you need for winter sports. From skis to boots to poles to cross countries to boards to helmets to goggles to, and you can get powder jackets now because it's a little warmer. Stop in today and tell them I sent you. Larson Ski and Sport, south of I-70 on Kipling, 303-423-0654. Forget the giant guys, man. Go to these guys, and they will take their time and show you how to do it. 303-423-0654. Larson Sport, Larson Sport.com. Final couple of seconds with Dick Wadhams. We were mentioning Bill Armstrong, and you wanted to talk about that again for a second.
Well, all I want to say, Peter, I'm glad you brought his name up because that's the kind of leadership we need. And you remember, Bill Armstrong was as conservative as any senator in America.
Absolutely.
And yet he won elections in Colorado, and it was not easy to do so back then. I know people think that there was a time where this was a totally red state. It never was.
Oh.
Armstrong and Brown and Wayne Allard and Bill Owens, they won elections that were hard fought and tough. And they won because they ran mainstream conservative campaigns and aggressive contrast with their opponents. I happen to know because I ran Wayne Allard's campaigns, I ran Bill Owens' campaign, I worked for Armstrong for 9 years, and I ran Hank Brown's campaign. So I know what it takes to win in Colorado, and the crowd that runs the party today has no idea what Colorado was like today.
I knew those men. I knew all of them. I'm as baffled, I suspect, as anybody, but then I'm told this whole new age is here, and if you don't do this, then you're that, and it's, it's sad because you can be right, and you're still gonna, you can. Well, it was Barry Goldwater or any of those kinds of guys, and it's not that they're wrong. It's just the approach is so difficult, and the country has changed. I don't know.
Yeah.
You take care of yourself, sir. Appreciate you taking time out today to talk. It's been a week. Dick Wadhams, everyone. I'll talk with you. Thanks, Dick. Bye.
All right.
303-696-1971. Most of the show has been dominated by what happened in the Oval Office. And when the Trump people, when they lock horns with Zelenskyy, and Trump and J.D. Vance are right. I mean, I don't know what is in the mindset of the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, but it is, and so that goes from there. All right, let's begin. My favorite person, Joe in Arvada. Joe, you're on a radio show.
Hi.
Hey, man.
Hi, Peter.
Morning, brother. Afternoon.
Well, yes. Peter, I wanted you to ask this of Dick Wadhams. I was thinking about Bill Armstrong. But The simple question comes to every conservative, real conservative's minds is, like California, Colorado is registering just about everybody. And the question has to be asked, how many of the registered voters are illegals? And they are being registered because when they come across the border, that's the first thing that the Biden administration did is register illegals. That's it. Now, maybe they're not voting. That's what everybody seems to say, but they're all being registered to vote. So how many illegals are in the registered column?
Really
and
don't.
how many are voting? Let me help you a little bit.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at about 10% of our registered.
Where's your number come from?
Well, the number comes from the numbers of illegals coming into Colorado. I believe we have over 100,000 illegals in this state.
What you just did with respect is you used the operative word, I believe.
Well, I think it can be proven because the Biden administration actually did keep records, but they were hidden. They were hidden. It can be proven, but the problem is that only the willing are allowed to look. The willing.
Well, once again, when people toss things around, and your great call, but you can't say, I believe and think it's knowledge. It's there. You can drive a truck between belief and knowledge. You can believe that, and so I think the other reasons why are the Democratic Party dominated was population shifts and bad candidates being propped up by the Republican Party. Now you can critique back.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you can critique back to the old mainstream Republicans. But in the state of Colorado, which is a separate universe from the country, but when you sell this, and I wrote about it 2 months ago, the people are sick and tired of what's taking place, and what's going on with their kids in school, what's going on.
Yeah, but they're tired of they're tired of the Mitt Romney Republican too, that Dick Wadhams wants in there.
You don't know that. I mean, it's like the Democrats.
Oh yes.
Now hold on, hold on.
We
a minute.
do know.
Hold on a minute. What happened internally with the Bidens is someday we'll know. Historians will write accurate books, but they pushed him aside. And they never ran primaries, and they anointed Harris. And Trump was right. I mean, she was anointed by probably no more than two handfuls of people, probably led by the Obamas. And
did Dick vote for Harris?
Oh, I don't know. I don't ask people how they vote. It's none of my business.
Well, I would ask him.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I think he voted for Trump, but I don't know that.
No. Are you kidding me?
No, I'm serious.
Come on.
Well, I don't know.
Dick Wadhams?
When you start talking about how people vote, first of all, it's none of your business. That's number one.
Come on. It's a fair question. Did you vote for Donald Trump? Yes, you did, Peter.
But it isn't any of your business.
Well, it isn't, but you did, didn't you?
Well,
come on.
It's none of your business how I voted. I'm not going to do that.
Well, I did.
Okay.
And I don't care whether it's anybody's business or not. I have the courage to say it.
You can. It isn't a courage thing. You can.
Oh, yes, it is.
That vote is yours. And that's the interesting thing about it.
Well, I can tell who I want to, can I?
Okay, sure you can. But
if you're ashamed of your vote, then you hide it.
No, people that.
Oh, yeah.
There are governments that want to. This is important. There are governments that want to be able to look into the booth with you.
But they do. That's just the problem. You think they don't, but they do.
Well.
Yes.
Well, again.
But you think they don't.
I think
you need to talk to Elon Musk.
Well, the assumptions of looking in. Look what Musk is looking into now. I mean, do you really think there is that moment? It goes back to when George Bush invents the Homeland Security. There's more violations took place in civil liberties under Bush's Homeland Securities and what they did to people. And, you know, you get to ask.
Oh, see, this is where you're so far off. Obama broke the record for screwing your security.
No, I said, wait a minute, the first person, see what you do, Joe, is and then you jump ahead to always hang it someplace else. When George Bush, they were literally snatching people off the streets and putting them into what was called black prisons run by black gangs. And that was Cheney and Bush. They did that. And they gave people power that they should have never had. And now the fight
and
is...
you don't think Obama's NSA
See, this is what makes conversations with you so precious. That it isn't going to matter what somebody's going to say over here that is the truth. You're going to find this...
I'm asking you.
I'm not an Obama fan. But it was Homeland Security was invented by Bush and Cheney.
They didn't invent the CIA.
No,
Give me a break.
I didn't say the CIA. They invented the biggest bureaucracy the country has, Homeland Security.
I understand. Homeland Security was an offshoot of 9/11.
That's right.
It really came because of the mess that was created probably by a CIA imagined Afghani, a corruption scheme. If you think the Saudis weren't involved with the CIA,
I know they were.
They were.
And they were also the ones that did 9/11. I don't want to start.
I agree with that.
I don't want to start this. We'll go down the bad road. We're running out of time.
Well, let me just say this, and I'll get out of your way.
Okay.
On the issue of Trump and Zelensky is a little rat. If you go to bed with a rat, you're not going to get cheese. You're going to get rat. You know what?
Well,
and that's what they got with Zelensky.
Well, Zelensky. Again, we've been over what happened in the Oval Office and what's happened with Donald Trump and Zelensky, and Zelensky was out of line, and I don't know what that's going to mean.
I agree, and Donald Trump is trying to get a deal and get peace, and I think that he will. It may not come the way that he wants it to right away.
Well, Ukraine will be littler. And I can tell you, I can almost guarantee that much.
They lost.
Yeah.
Donald Trump explained it to Z directly. You lost the war. What do they not understand?
Well, the line that was the telling line, I've watched this tape a couple of times, was you were tampering with, in essence, I'm paraphrasing, you're tampering with World War III. What's the matter with you? Which I thought was a great
exactly.
line. That was a great line.
Zelensky wants to go around and pander to in the entire universe, all the world, to give him more and more and more until they get nukes, and then they can all have World War III together. That's all he wants. And in reason being, he profited mightily from the whole deal. Everybody knows it. That's the hidden thing that's not being said. You profited off of all of the war.
Well,
that's what happened.
They stole. I mean, they did more than that.
Yes.
But it was the same thing when the United States props up governments in South Vietnam. They stole, they banked in Singapore, they banked in San Francisco, and they banked in Los Angeles. And the same thing, apparently I'm told that Ukrainians, the power brokers of the Ukraine are banking in London, they're banking in Los Angeles. That's their out money. The same thing, wealthy Cubans always banked in Miami. So when Castro overthrows Batista, their money's waiting for them in Miami. So the so-called white Cubans, when they flee to Miami, it's waiting for them. I mean, it's an age-old trick. The Somozas banked in I think in Spain or in Madrid. And so when you run to the money. When
where does Z bank?
I don't know. I don't know. But
interesting
but
question.
It would probably be London, or it would be, someplace. But they bank outside the country, and they always do that. Sigmund Rhee banked outside the country, and it's a trust thing. They know that, and all the money that in the Cuban money. What's that place called? Kissimmee, Florida, and Daytona.
Kissimmee?
Yeah, they banked there. They banked in Miami. And
do you think Z will be deposed?
I think he'll leave. I think he'll leave.
Soon?
No, I mean I don't know. I can't put a guess on that, but I think he'll go into exile, and he'll be taken in by the crown heads, and he'll be held up because now he and Trump are in a clash, and these people don't like Trump, so they'll make him a hero. It's already.
They'll never fund the war that Z wants, though.
Not now. I think it's over. I think the money is over, but we'll see. But certainly the armaments, he's frozen the armaments. And so, but when they started discovering the American military hardware in other markets, they knew that somebody was shuffling that stuff. And so
we were the rubes that got taken for the dough.
Anytime you prop up someone in another world, that's almost inevitably what happens. Have a good weekend, brother. All right, turning around. It is Saturday, 67 the high. It is 12:39, 21 before the hour. Stay right here.
At this hour, I'm Christina Ohio in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Attorney General Pam Bondi is launching an investigation after she says the FBI field office in New York allegedly withheld thousands of Epstein documents. Bondi says a source has come forward claiming the field office has thousands of pages of documents, so she decided to take swift action, writing a letter to FBI Director Kash Patel. Bondi is saying in part that before Patel was confirmed, she requested the entirety of the Epstein documents, but only received about 200 pages. Saying, quote, I repeatedly questioned whether this was a full set of documents responsive to my request and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received the full set of documents. She goes on to say, late yesterday, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, she said, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. Bondi demanded all files, audio and video recordings, and anything else related to Epstein to be handed over to her office by today, and directed Kash Patel to launch an immediate investigation into why her initial directive was not followed, giving him 14 days to provide his findings. The first batch of Epstein files was released to a select handful of social media influencers on Thursday. Egypt says negotiations between Israel and the terror group of Hamas on the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire have started in Cairo. Egypt's State Information Service said officials from Israel, Qatar, and the U.S. on Thursday started, quote,
everybody. Saturday, March 1. That feels good. 2025. 710 KNUS, 67 the high. 64 on Sunday. Monday, 60 degrees. Back to the phones. This is Marie. Marie, thank you. You waited. You're on the show. Happy afternoon on a Saturday.
Hello, Peter. I wanted to call because there was some talk about whether or not the European nations had helped out Ukraine. And there's a website published by the delegation of the European Union to the United States. And they say that the European countries have given $30.5 billion to Ukraine in 2022 and 2023. And in 2025, they've already given $3.2 billion. So they have made a contribution. Now, I heard that it was more than what the United States did, but I can't find the
United States has given in appropriations $174.2 billion, 5 different appropriations under the Biden administration. I looked it up before I came in this morning. The UK, the entire EU, I think your number's accurate, but the U.S.
Well, they did give something,
Yeah, but again, it's in their backyard. If there's a fear factor, it's there. But under the Bidens, there's been 5 Ukrainian supplemental appropriations.
My understanding, Peter, is that a lot of what we gave to Ukraine was from our supply of military armament.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. But that was paid for by you and me. And
exactly, I know.
Yeah. So the number is 174.2 billion, and the big money goes to General Dynamics and Boeing and
right.
But you and I are paying for it, and
I know, but I just want to make sure.
No, your point's well taken.
Okay, and I also think that yesterday morning, Zelenskyy went to Congress, and he got a tremendous welcome.
Sure.
Bipartisan, hugging, congratulating pictures, and all of that. And he may have been led to believe that he had more support in the entire administration than he did. And also, Trump may not have been real pleased with that.
Well, again, remember, Trump's motto is America first, not Ukraine first, and he's got a relationship with Putin. We know that. And he's got 2 foreign policy issues that he has talked about during the campaign. One is Gaza or in Israel, and the other one is Ukraine.
But the fear of Russia is long dominated in Europe. My grandmother left Slovakia in 1903 because the Russians would periodically come into their village and take the men for soldiers and rape the women. And they hated Russia.
Remember, and they were under the Romanovs. That was not the Soviets. Yeah.
But it was the Russians that came in. It was the Hungarian, the Austrian.
Sure. Yeah. They would have funerals for the young men.
Yeah.
The Cossacks would come and put them in barns and surround them, and the families would have funerals because they knew they weren't coming back.
Right.
And that was the Romanovs. That was the Romanovs.
But it was from Russia. They were,
That's
were
right.
Russian. When the Cuban Missile happened, and incidentally, everybody knew that Kennedy was taking the missiles out of Turkey. That wasn't a big secret.
Yes, it was. It was. It wasn't anything that was trumpeted.
It's my time, my history as well as yours. I remember it very well.
Well, that could be. Maybe you were smarter than me, but
I'm a little bit older.
Well, a little bit wiser. But they really. I just finished a book about called Brothers and Sons and Brothers, about Jack and Bobby. But they did everything they could with their Jack Kennedy was seen as the hero that he forced the Soviets down, that they blinked. Remember, the other fellow blinked. But what people didn't know is, as the Soviets removed their missiles, we removed ours.
Right.
And then the same thing, that they broke the Truman Corollary to Monroe Doctrine, and they guaranteed that Fidel could stay in power, and they were not going to try and overthrow him, although we know they continued to try.
That's right. And Castro and Che Guevara were very, very active in South America. But,
well, Fidel wasn't as much as Che was because
I know Fidel was in Cuba.
Yeah,
and that was his
because
guy.
the Castros wanted. Actually, the Castros feared and hated Che Guevara.
I come from a time when we thought that peace would be secured by working with all nations and treaties, and that and I missed that time, and it's gone now, and I don't know what's going to happen. I wish
your points are all well taken, but the United States has been involved in wars,
and Iraq. The one place where I agree with Trump is he said in 2004 Iraq was wrong. The information wasn't there.
God.
It was stupid. Yeah.
But it was true in Vietnam. That information was wrong, and those were lies. And you could go on and on and on and on. And that's the great sadness. I love your call. It's a very, very smart call. But it's...
Well, I'm glad I can talk to you personally instead of talking to someone who's doing a eulogy for Peter Boyles.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Last week or whenever Caldero was on.
Yeah.
Did not sound very encouraging.
Well, I got a heart valve, and so I don't know if anybody else knows or cares, but that's really where I was. And I had these wonderful Swedish heart surgeons, and my guy, Dr. Prager, and Dr. Park, and everybody, and they put a new valve in me, so I got a valve job. And when I used to think I knew a little bit about cars, which I really don't, but everyone said 81,000 miles. you do a valve job on a flathead, right? Well, I'm 81 years old, so what the hell, right? But it's been the most wonderful thing I think that's happened to me. I can't tell you how great I feel, and I owe those men and Swedish hospitals crew, and so I'm back in the game. So, and I'm going to try and ski in March, or this is March, but with my grandson. I never skied with my grandson because of the health issues I've had. So, I'm up. I'm pumped. We'll see what happens next. But
well, I wish you good luck.
You too. Thank you, Marie. Good call. Thank you. What do we got left here? We got a couple minutes? Okay. Let us go to, it says Homer in Montrose. Hey, Homer, we'll take your call. You're on the radio show. Thank you and good morning. And good afternoon.
Hey, I got lucky. Longtime fan.
Thank you, brother.
Yes. See, I've read several books that you recommend.
Turn your radio down. Your radio's on in the background. It's just bleeding right back through. Go, please.
Is it?
And we got two. And we got two. Yes, sir. We got 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Favorite book.
Yes, it's a wonderful book. Well, I'm reading the 5th edition.
Oh, wow.
So must be people are reading this book. Our wonderful library system. I got this book from Vail Library.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, we're on the clock, so try and make your point.
Well, could you? Is there anyone that you could have on your show that could explain where these billions come from?
You're talking about the Federal Reserve.
No, I'm talking about Ukraine and the flow of money to Ukraine.
Go get a mirror. Go get a mirror. You want to know where it's coming from.
How does that affect our economy?
Of course.
This is the inflation is coming from the Federal Reserve.
Of course, it's fiat currency. No, you're right. Absolutely right. I mean, but that doesn't matter to the prime defense contractors who are pocketing the dough.
Yes, and many politicians are investing
there you go.
in McDonnell Douglas and all these other places.
They know in advance. No, I agree with you, Homer. It's like it's a merry-go-round that you just don't want to ride, and we're riding it. And to his credit, Trump has stopped it. So we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
Will he investigate the fraud?
Got 30 seconds. Call again. Love the call, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Adam, as always. The man, Biker Bob's here. We'll get on and see the Devil's Head Boys, and weekend's here, and the weather's great, and it's motorcycle time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It was a good show, and thanks to Dick, and thanks to Darcy. See